Are you religious at all?
I used to be very religious. I was raised very traditional Catholic, and I had always thought, in the back of my mind, that I wanted to be a priest. I kind of drifted away and got disillusioned with the Catholic Church because of the sex scandal stuff. I think it's possible to be a moral person without being a Christian, but I do think that the principles of Christianity are a good framework to build a moral person. I also think that they can be perverted.
Do you believe in Jesus?
I believe that he existed. I don't know if he rose from the dead 3 days later. I'm not sure if I believe that. I'm not sure if I'm there. There's a humbleness, I think, to the nature of a real man of God. When you see that humility, it fits. It's like, okay, Christ was a humble person. What kind of a pastor doesn't visit people when they're on their deathbed?
When has us changing or doing a regime change in any of those Middle Eastern countries ever worked?
I know.
The answer is it hasn't.
I agree. I mean, I just don't see the biblical promise of the Jewish the Holy Land being promised to the Jews and the current Israeli government as being the same thing.
A lot of people, I think, unfortunately view you as the bad guy who go to Grace City, or even maybe who don't go there, who just see what you report on.
Yeah.
How do you view yourself? So you own your own business?
Yes, I do. Yeah, Digital Media Northwest is what it's called. Yeah. So I've owned that for like 15 years. And I started out as a sole prop, and then took on a partner. Yeah. And really grew that, and that was kind of like I wasn't even doing journalism or anything like that. Just straight up marketing, And then I started writing a column regularly for the paper, and at that time the paper was a client, so when we lost that account because of COVID, and just like everybody was, marketing budgets went out the window. First thing to do, when you want to save money as a small business person. So we were kind of like the casualty of that COVID,
where everything just kind of
retraction.
Shut down.
Everything.
The whole market was just restricted.
So thankfully we got Local as a client, and so we moved across town. Well, I moved across town like 4 blocks, right? So moved into what's now the City Hall, and at that time I had started to kind of write more, not gonzo journalism, but like first person. Like I'd never written in the first person before. So the BLM marches happened, and their guys with guns showed up and followed these women down the street. A lot of women, mostly young girls and old women, and some guys. But there's like 5,000 people that showed up to march that first time.
Was that? Are you talking about locally or was
locally?
That, oh, here, damn! I didn't even know that.
And that was 2021. It was right after George Floyd had been killed. Like the week after, the second weekend after. And I put some stuff online on my Twitter when it was still Twitter, and CBS this morning on Sunday mornings picked it up and used it in a montage of like proof that these were all like peaceful protests across the country, even in small towns. A lot of people showed up, and the next time they did it, guys with guns showed up to stop them, and I kind of lost, I lost, I guess, my ability to hold my tongue as like a neutral observer. And so I wrote this big column in the paper, and I basically, go back to the like philosophy behind who gets to use violence, right? And it's like in Leviathan, the seminal work of like Western philosophy. He writes that, the moment that we take violence out of the hands of individuals or small groups, and that vendetta is taken out of the hands of these small groups, and is essentially the responsibility of and the purview of the government, then we took a huge step towards civilization. And so if we have vigilantes on the street, wherever they're there, for a left mob or a right mob, we've taken a step back into a dangerous place, right? And we have to let the authorities have the monopoly over violence, or else we are just going to devolve into this Hatfields and McCoys, lawless chaos.
Yeah.
So it was this whole well-reasoned thing, and I was in the militia's Facebook group at the same time, and so the Sunday.
So it was organized then. I didn't know there was like a Facebook group too.
Yeah, they were so dumb. I'm sure that they still exist.
You would think like they'd try to like make like, I don't know, maybe a Discord, something more private than a Facebook group.
You would think it was called Wenatchee, and I'm sure it still exists. The group, they're just not on Facebook anymore.
Yeah.
But it was called Wenatchee QRF. So Wenatchee Quick Response Force, and they were talking about bring tampons because we might have to plug bullet holes, and setting up dog kennels for the cages for the ones that we're gonna resist and stuff like that. They're just fantasizing about harming their friends and neighbors.
I don't know, it just seems a little corny to me. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. So I'm like, I get like if they had their own separate march for like Second Amendment or something, because I'm pro that, but
totally.
I don't know, like planning that like going to another protest at the same time with guns and everything is just such a corny move to me. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if it's like trying to be like a show of force of like being tough or whatever, but I don't know.
It was that's all it was about.
Yeah,
and it was happening across the country too. I mean, you have to remember at that time. I mean, you just said you're 24, so you were probably pretty young.
I graduated in 2020.
Okay,
so,
yeah,
I was 18.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So 18, you might not have been as cued into the news, but this happened in Omak, it happened in Coeur d'Alene and Boise, and like all across the country, but especially the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of good old boys. Grab your AR and make sure that the Antifa know who's boss, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Thankfully, nobody was
seriously hurt or anything.
But I called the chief of police at that time. No, he's chief of police now, and he was one of the captains. And I was talking to him, and I was like, "Well, what if a car backfires, right? And somebody is trigger happy?
Yeah,
it's going to be just the potential for accidental violence alone should really, give us pause here." And all that, I think, it was just kind of fell on deaf ears, and it got a lot of backlash. And so they posted in their Facebook group, this liberal commie, blah blah blah. It's like I'm a farm boy from Eastern Washington, educated at WSU, in journalism, like my whole life, and has been, and I want it to continue to be. In Eastern Washington. I love this state. I love this part of the state. But I've seen a lot of people, as I've grown up in agricultural areas and rural areas of the state, there's just this anger that has almost consumed people that I knew growing up, adults that I knew growing up, and peers too. And I think that's one of the things that I'm most fascinated about discovering or learning more about in my journalism.
Yeah, no, I definitely think in like our current society, it's everyone, just the political climate's so hot, and I feel like the last podcast someone had said that they felt it was probably around the era of Obama, because he was like the first black president, and that's what like really started to divide people, I suppose. And then when Trump got elected in 2016, then it just became even more divisive, because it just got even hotter, and this guy was a celebrity, not a politician or anything. And I feel like ever since then, it's just based off my conversation with people, they really saw the shift where you can't even, like, if someone has a different political view than you, then it's like there's just like you instantly hate them. And like that's kind of all I've grown up around. And I talk to like older people, and they're like, dude, politics didn't even used to be that big of a deal. Like obviously, like you could have conversations, it was still important and everything, but you could have civil conversations with someone you disagreed with, and you wouldn't get disrespectful about it too. Like now when you have politicians going off and cussing about other politicians and just being super unprofessional, it's like I look
depicting them as monkeys.
Yeah,
right? I mean, that when that meme came out, I was like, I just, can you go any lower?
Yeah, it's It's just weird. It's such a weird thing. Like, you would think that your politicians would be the people you look up to and kind of set the standard for society.
Yeah.
And now we have people just going off on Twitter or X or whatever and just saying crazy things, and it's just tearing your political opponents down. I don't think you should do that. I think you should beat them with logic and facts first, in conversation, and not just make fun of them. And it's I don't know, it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, but, I mean, I think what has really changed over my life, I'm about to turn 41. I remember the first time that things felt vitriolic like they are now was the Clinton impeachment era after Monica Lewinsky. Yeah. And I think you started to really have this. What's interesting is people said he's not a role model. He's a sex pervert. Therefore he's unfit to be president. So quaint now that we think that having an affair disqualifies you as being the president of the United States. That's how high we held that office. Yeah, like you should not just be a successful person of business or successful in politics, but you should actually be morally beyond reproach. And that's so lost these days, and I don't think we should really ever, going back to JFK, right? I mean, nobody really expects a president to be, do not cheat on his wife or be a dog or whatever, but we've just taken it so far off the beaten path there, off the rails, where it's just it's a whole different, I mean, Trump has really set a whole different precedent for like what we allow our leaders to do and how they behave. I mean, I can remember one of the biggest problems that Fox News had with Obama was he wore a tan suit one time.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. Oh, they flipped out. And another time he bowed to the Prime Minister of Japan, and they thought that he bowed too low, and they spent weeks talking about how the dignity of America was being impugned by him bowing so low to another world leader. And now Trump just gets on and says, I'm going to annihilate an entire society. 94 million people.
It's pretty insane. So you'll learn. I don't know. Have you looked into me at all? Really?
Not really.
You'll learn how much my views have shifted. So like I kind of got into politics right around like this current election season, this recent one, and I was going to Gray City.
Okay.
And that's why I've said you're gonna love this. And I was like, I still am Christian. I'm still religious, but I was going to Gray City, and at first I really liked it because it was like a good community and everything. And then it just like come election time. So I want to say I started going to Gray City around like October of 23 or maybe before that, maybe 22. But anyways, a buddy asked me to go, so I was going for like a year or so, and it was good. Like I went to the young adults group, and it was just like I got to meet people my age and kind of like network and talk and learn about the religion. But as the election came closer, it was like every sermon became politically focused and less focused around Jesus and what I wanted to learn about. And like as someone who is like just new into like my faith and everything, it was like, why am I going here to talk about politics and get this fed to me? And it was just and so like I stepped away because there was a lot other things which we can discuss too, but it was just like every week I didn't want to go to a freaking sermon to get told who to vote for or like what to support, and it was just weird like how that was like what they based a lot of their sermons about. And so I stepped away from that. But yeah, I voted for Trump in 24 because all the things he ran on, like the No New Wars and like I knew he was a successful businessman and talking about making the housing market go back down and all these promises that really not one has been kept. And God, and then so what brought me to this is that tweet with the whole like annihilate the whole country. Like, dude, you're literally talking about a genocide.
I know.
And I don't know what your thoughts on like Israel are and everything, but it's just for me personally, I feel like we just bow down to AIPAC. Like AIPAC, I feel like runs our country now, and it has been for a long time. But it's just, especially right now, I just feel like we just do whatever that country wants us to do. Mm-hmm. And like that's one thing I also have with a lot of like Christians is that they like will take things and think that just because the Bible says we need to support Israel, they mean the Bible doesn't mean the current government of Israel. Yeah. Like that, how do you get that twisted up? That doesn't make any sense. Like the land and like the history components behind the state of Israel are completely different than the current government. Yeah. Like, so it's just weird. And the whole, like when everything with Israel versus Palestine, all this, the free Israel, free Palestine stuff was going on at the time, I didn't know anything about it. Yeah. But now it's like looking back on it, I'm like, dude, I just don't get it. How are people like okay with that? You look at Gaza now, for example, and it's nothing. It's rubble. They just write it off like thousands of people didn't just get killed. I know. And we didn't do anything about it. In fact, like we kind of supported it. Yeah. So
and we've been supporting it for 75 years, since the end of World War II.
Ever since JFK was assassinated, pretty much. I want to say.
Before that. I mean, when they partitioned Palestine, it was, and it began as an open air refugee camp, most of it, and we were behind it. It was really the English and the British in the driver's seat, because there was like a British protectorate. Yeah. Before World War II, but after World War II, I mean, we were very much pro-Zionists from the very beginning, and a lot of people, I think a lot of Americans, from everything I've read, and I could see why they would be. They just saw the Holocaust happen, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're like, wow, I mean, the Jews do need a home. They need a place where they can be safe, because look at what happened in Europe. Yeah. So, there was this huge outpouring of support, and then a lot of organization, I'm not sure if it was AIPAC at the beginning, but the precursors, the Zionist movement was very organized. Yeah. And that wasn't uncommon too. I mean, my family's Irish, right? Mm-hmm. There was a lot of organization in support of the Provos, the IRA, in fighting the British in Northern Ireland for a long time. I mean, Americans funded that, insurgent war against the British in Northern Ireland. So, I think that there's always been these kind of like pet foreign political entanglements, or these conflicts that Americans have really like funded and driven from abroad. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I just don't see the biblical promise of the Jewish Holy Land being promised to the Jews, and the current Israeli government as being the same thing, But I don't think that many people want to offer much clarity there. A lot of preachers like Josh McPherson, they're not going to go into the nuance there. Yeah. They want to gloss it over and say, hey, we're pro-Israel, we're ride or die, no matter what they do. Yeah. Even if that's genocide.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get it, man. It just doesn't make sense to me. But also it's like the Palestinians, the people, like they just got moved, like they were there before we moved the Jewish population there. Yeah. And like I saw something, I don't know if it's true, but I'm pretty sure that Israel banned DNA test.
Oh, really?
Because like what most DNA tests would show, that Palestinians were actually closer to being Semites than the current modern day Jewish people who live in Israel. Yeah. Because like all those modern day Israelis are actually from Europe.
Yeah, a lot of them from Europe. Yeah.
And a lot of the Palestinians were actually raised in Israel. Right. So like I heard that their government banned DNA tests for that reason, because they don't want that to be shown. But it's just crazy. And then they list you, if you even talk about this stuff, you're instantly like anti-Semitic. Yeah. And
that's the other thing that really annoys me about just American media in general. Yeah. I think outside the United States, there's a lot more room for varying opinions without being labeled an anti-Semite. And I mean, I'm by no means an anti-Semite. I think there are merits to Zionism as an argument, as an idea. But I think that there's no reason why we can't live in a world where a two-state solution doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It just means that the Israeli government would have to give a lot up, right? And they're under current management. They're never going to do that.
Yeah.
But I think we could figure it out. And I think that there was hope for that, especially going back to the 90s, right? Everybody was talking about two-state solution. Maybe Clinton can, broker some kind of deal. That didn't work.
Yeah.
Bush tried. That didn't work. But it was every president's kind of like
fought it
goal.
A little bit.
Well, every president, that was the big apple that they all wanted to pluck, right? That was the Nobel Peace Prize problem.
Yeah.
What president can figure out, broker a deal to have a two-state solution? If he does that, then he's guaranteed a second term and a Nobel Peace Prize, which we now know. No, Americans don't care what presidents do abroad.
No.
It's all about the economy, and that's what you win or lose on, as a presidential candidate. But
yeah, no, it's just it's crazy seeing all that, everything happen and not being able to really do anything. Like it almost makes you as a citizen just kind of feel hopeless at times.
Oh yeah,
it's like, dude, what do I do? Because at points, like, you look at like people who receive like all the AIPAC money, and that's my biggest grievance with AIPAC is because they spend millions of dollars on politicians, and these politicians, if they're getting millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars from this lobby, they're not going to speak out against them. Like that's who pays their bills and makes them extremely wealthy, and that's both sides of the party.
Both sides of the party, but I mean, you really hit on the bigger problem is how powerful lobbyists are. I mean, today it's AIPAC that we're all focused on,
but there's others.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be big tobacco, right? Keeping the industry unregulated as possible. Meanwhile, Americans smoking, are smoking themselves to death.
Yeah.
And tomorrow it could be big pharma. It's usually big pharma.
Big pharma, the food industry.
I mean,
all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's lobbying. Lobbying the lobbyists have too much power because money is power.
Yeah, But how do you even get out of that? Do you just ban lobbying as a whole?
Well, I think reforms on like what they call dark money, and specifically like reforming the political action committees, PACs. Because those can operate essentially. There's like an unlimited funding stream for whatever candidate they support, right? So a candidate can only take a certain amount of dollars by the state level. Like that's like $1,200 per person. At federal elections, I'm not sure what it is. I think it's like $3,400. But if you're taking money from your PAC, you could take $10 million.
That's weird. I didn't know that.
So if I'm rich as hell, I'm a Bill Gates guy, or I'm whatever, Musk, I just give to the PAC that's then going to pay for all your campaign, basically. So that's why PACs are such like that linchpin between lobbyists and rich people who want to give unlimited amounts of dollars. Yeah.
So is 2020 or 2021, is that kind of when you started getting more into politics then too?
I almost double majored in political science. I was two classes shy of having a second major in political science in college. And my idea was that I was going to go on to do law. So I was pre-law, but I really fell in love with journalism. And I think 2021, because of COVID and because of just, that divisive nature of American politics, I sort of got more involved as a participant rather than an observer, right? So I had been, doing journalism, dabbling, since college, but always writing in that third person point of view. In 2021, I decided for two reasons. One was because I was seeing how people were treating each other, and the other was because I was forbidden from talking about Grace City Church on NCW Life TV when I had a TV show here locally.
Like they stopped you from talking about it?
Yeah, they censored me.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they said you can talk about, and so the deal was that I wasn't paid, and I would do a show for them. I'd produce a show, write it, present it, do the whole thing, for free, if I no strings. So I didn't want any input. I didn't want any direction on what I couldn't say. No censorship.
But it was basically just a vehicle to allow you to kind of get your name out there a little bit, right? And kind of give yourself a voice, or
they needed content.
Oh, okay.
So it's still a pretty, I don't want to say rinky dink or like it's
small.
It's a small,
big. You have to go to like a very specific channel to find it.
Yeah, it's like a college station.
Yeah,
right? It's like what the Moreau School has at WSU. Little higher quality than doing it in your basement, kind of a thing. And I was like, cool. I know they don't have very many viewers, but it allows me to kind of flex this journalistic muscle that I have been wanting to recently, and I like playing with cameras. So I took the show and I took the deal, and it was a handshake deal. We didn't sign a contract, and then come to find out when I wanted to cover Grace City, something that they did, I couldn't, or I was forbidden from saying anything about that topic. So the manager of the station at the time said, well, you can start a blog. You could do a blog. And I was like, okay, well, and he was just kind of flippant about it, just kind of paternalistic. And it just rubbed me the wrong way. And I said, all right. So I started a Substack, basically was the precursor to Substack. And it took off. I really haven't looked back since then.
So is Substack, is that how you make the majority of your money now?
Yeah, that's pretty much my income.
How do you grow that?
Well, it's a subscription, so people can subscribe either for free, or if they want to be a sustaining member, they can do that. It's $8 a month, or like $96 a year. And I've been lucky enough to, I think, provide enough quality content and solid news coverage that has been kind of lacking from the Valley for a long time, to make the case to people that they should pay for it.
Yeah.
And I also say, like, I kind of come out of the that era of young journalists that were young like 20 years ago, where everybody was giving it away for free, and all these newspapers moved online, and then they got killed because why pay for the subscription if you can get the content for free?
Yeah.
And I kind of refuse on principle to work for free. So I'll give away, a lot. It's about 50-50. So the things that I think the community really needs to know, or this isn't necessarily a proprietary thing or IP or whatever, I'll make those free.
Okay.
So like upcoming a charity event, I'll cover that, and that'll go out for free. But if I'm doing investigative work or scooping people, or I'm doing something where I have an edge and I've worked significant man hours on this, then I put it behind the paywall.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What would you say is like the major difference between you and, let's say, Wenatchee World, because they're like the most locally known or prominent? What's the difference between what your work and what you do compared to what they do?
Institutional knowledge. I mean, their turnover, because they refuse, this is the business model of the modern newspaper, and this is since it got bought by the WIC Corporation out of Arizona. It's not locally owned anymore, and it hasn't been for almost 10 years. They pay people right out of college the bare minimum, and then burn them out in like 12 to 24 months. And they just grind through these young reporters. So there's always a new person at all these beats.
Gotcha.
Back in the day when, the 70s, 80s, 90s even, the reporter that called the sheriff has known the sheriff and covered the courthouse and the sheriff's office for 20 years, right? I have that kind of institutional knowledge because I've been here for so long in the media game. I've developed these sources where I've been to people's houses. I've been to their birthday parties. I've been to their anniversary parties. I know their kids' names. So when I call them up, they take the time, or I get a little bit more, or I get that better quote than, a kid 6 months out of college who is only talked to the sheriff or the police chief or the mayor twice.
Yeah.
You know,
it's that long-standing reputation versus someone who has no grounding in the area, really.
Yeah.
You have this new young kid. It's just not that they could do amazing work, but they're just not as respected because they don't have that locally known name, especially in a place like this where it's pretty not easy to be known, but people like who they like.
Yeah.
And like when you have your name, like say people who have been following you, it's going to be really hard to get them to switch over to someone else.
Yeah.
Because that's who they like. They like going to you for their information, and that's where they get their news from. So, and they trust you. So
exactly, trust and reputation. And the other thing is sometimes when you're younger, you just don't know what to ask, right? Because you just haven't lived as long, or you haven't covered this type of a story before. You know, I mean, the quality news, I think, it comes usually from reporters that are a little bit longer in the tooth, right? And really, I say nothing bad against cub reporters or young people who are reporting. It's really the conglomerate, the corporation that's trying to just squeeze out that little extra profit by shortchanging and overworking young reporters. Those are the people I have a problem with. It's the bosses. It's the corporate overlord. It's not the local newsroom.
Yeah.
You know. And they just turn everything into kind of similar schlock, right? It's all the pageant. It's called pagination. All the layout, all the design is done in Arizona. So it doesn't, it's not done here. It doesn't look unique. It's not in any way unique. It's just the same thing they do for Scottsdale, Arizona, right? Or wherever, Mesa.
I will say, you said something about young reporters just not knowing like the questions to ask. That's definitely something that I've experienced. I'm not a reporter per se, but I do like just having these conversations and being able to talk to people. And I watch people who have done podcasts for a long time, and I'm like, dude, that was an amazing question. Like, how do you even think about that?
Yeah.
But then I also learned that I think that comes with time and just time.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
So it's just being patient and willing to put in those hours. And one big thing that I've found that's helped me a lot is rewatching my episodes and then realizing what words I stuttered on or repeat, and just kind of seeing how I can improve, because there's always room for improvement.
Absolutely. And talking about the art of interviewing people, I think Terry Gross on NPR, if you ever listen to Fresh Air.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, she is probably, I mean, and I'm preaching, there's a huge Terry Gross fan base, but she's one of the best interviewers, I think, in American media history. And she's nearing the end of her career, but she works out of, I believe, Chicago.
Okay.
And she has that nationally syndicated on NPR. It's called Fresh Air.
NPR?
Yeah, National Public Radio. And she is just an amazing listener. She's an active listener, and there's really like this less is more kind of a thing with her. And I love that sometimes she'll just say, "Tell me more about that," right? Because people aren't done yet.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and she has that intuitive way of feeling that maybe there's something that hasn't been said about this, so I'll push just a little bit more. Another person that I think is a really good interviewer is Conan O'Brien.
Oh, yep.
Conan O'Brien is I think
one of the late night show. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I grew up when he had the Late Show, right? And I always thought Conan was the best. But he's the funniest, like from a comics standpoint, because he's a comedian.
Yeah.
But he's a really intuitive interviewer, and he uses his manic kind of comedy style, but really you can tell he's listening the whole time. And I think that he's so good because he's really good at improv.
Yeah.
Right? Improv comedy. And there's so many skills that you can learn from improv that I think help you become a better interpersonal communicator, as well as an interviewer,
Yeah, improv, definitely. I remember back, are you big into movies at all, or watch?
Oh yeah, I love that.
Me too. I'm a big Marvel fan.
Okay.
I'm like a big Marvel geek. And it was when Spider-Man No Way Home came out.
Oh yeah.
I had never watched a Marvel movie. I just thought like that was for like little kids or something.
Yeah.
And then my cousin, he asked me to go see that movie in theaters. And I watched Spider-Man No Way Home for the first time, and I was like, dude, I want to be an actor.
Yeah.
and I saw that, and like I legit went home, like looked up like acting classes online and improv stuff, and I was like, I was just so fascinated with it for the next few months, and then I just completely geeked out on acting and Marvel stuff, and it definitely can help, like
for sure,
drastically, especially like with just being comfortable on camera and having those conversations, because that's what acting is the only difference I'd say is like acting, you're being a different person versus when you're doing something like this, you're being yourself, hopefully. Right. So
well, there's that concept of the yes and, right? Yeah. It's like a ball. It's like you're tossing back and forth a tennis ball, and that's what a conversation is, right? So a yes and mentality is like, I see that, and I want to add to it, and we create something together. And so often, I think people speak to be heard rather than to have a collaborative experience with somebody else. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's why people suck at having conversations, because they're just talking to be heard.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think people are just naturally self-centered to a certain degree. But I also think that, especially nowadays, we just don't listen to each other. And maybe people just, on average, aren't used to being listened to, you know? And I think, actually, you know, one of the skills of being a good interviewer or being a good journalist is making people feel heard.
Yeah.
Right? And that not only makes them more comfortable, but they'll tell you anything, you know, within reason. But sometimes people will really share more than you thought, you know, more than I would, just because you sit there and you actively listen.
Yeah.
And you act genuinely interested in what they have to say. You know, it's a great way to honor somebody. You know, it's a gift that you give them.
It goes back to what I was saying before we started this. Like, I think the lack of conversation today.
Yeah.
People like being heard, and I don't think there's just all this noise coming from so many places. It's hard to feel heard, and you rarely have that opportunity outside of maybe like your marriage or your kids or something like that. And even your kids, you're not going to have like a real deep conversation with, because you're supposed to be like their support, and you're not going to go to them to. I mean, maybe like some things, obviously, about their life and whatnot, but it's not the same as going and talking to a stranger, or going and talking to like a friend at dinner, and being able to sit there and talk and have like an hour-long conversation.
Right.
And I just think it's lacking these days.
Oh, totally.
Just not very common.
Yeah.
What was your motivation to get into this industry?
Well, it's funny that we talked about Israel and Palestine, because the first thing that I ever had published was in the Yakima Herald, and it was a letter to the editor about the Palestinian conflict in like 1995, and I was like 10.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I had a strong opinion about that, and I hate to say it, that I think I've come one full circle, you know, full 180 on where I was as a 10-year-old, but
that's crazy.
But that was my first time, and I thought that was really cool. You know, I got the paper, I opened it, because I used to read the paper every day as a kid, because my grandparents would get it, and it was the Yakima Herald. I grew up in Sunnyside, Washington, and it was, you know, even at that time, pretty skimpy, small paper, and I really liked the comics, but I would go read the comics, and then I would read the letters to the editor, because it was people's opinions. And when I got my own in there, I thought, wow, I've made it now. You know, so I saw my name in print, and I was like, this is cool. And so I'd always been a reader too, like since I was a kid. Actually had a hard time learning how to read as like a very young kid. And then once something clicked, and I was just a voracious reader as a kid. And you know, this is also the mid-90s. There's no internet, there's no digital devices, nobody's got tablets. It was like there was Saturday morning cartoons, and this was before cable even. Or you found books, or you did something else, right? And so I kind of like really came alive reading books of all different types, but you know, young adult novels, fantasy, Goosebumps. You know, Goosebumps was my jam. Every time a new Goosebumps came out, I was there with you know, $10.99 or whatever it was at the bookshop, you know. So I'd always kind of wanted to be a writer. And then I broke my leg in 2007, and I was in college, and I was pre-law poli-sci. It was my track for major. And I broke my femur and I almost killed myself skiing.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, just shattered my leg, the left femur, into like 18 pieces. It was a compound spiral fracture. Yeah, the whole like I woke up, my toes were in. I was laying on my back, and my toes were pointing down into the snow.
How did it happen? Do you remember like what led to it?
Yeah, I traded skis with my uncle to try his skis, but it wasn't calibrated, and my feet were about a half size bigger than his. So they didn't come out of the bindings when I crashed, and so it just helicoptered my leg. Yeah. And so got compartmental syndrome because of that, which is like extreme swelling because of damaged tissues. That turned into rhabdomyolysis, which is basically when there's so much toxins because of shredded muscle in your body that it starts to overwhelm and shut down your kidneys. And they're like, if this doesn't turn around, we're gonna have to put you on dialysis. I mean, it was pretty bad there for a little bit. And I had the sense that I was like probably over dramatically, right? Like I was 21 at the time, and in the best shape, some of the best shape of my life. I was playing soccer in college, and I thought, I think I'm close to dying. I don't think I was ever probably close to dying, but more like having a severe limp for the rest of my life and being, in pain, kind of a thing. Thankfully, good surgeons, right? I don't walk with a limp, and I don't have that much pain, but I thought to myself, I've always wanted to be a writer, and here I am, like 21, and I thought that I would have more time to go and do that. If I'm gonna die, that's my biggest regret, is that I never really tried it enough to fail, And so when I got done, I transferred to WSU, and I crutched into the newsroom of the paper there. Yeah. And I got a job as a columnist, writing a opinion column once a week, and then I moved up from that to opinion editor, and then I started reporting news, and I worked my way up to editor-in-chief by the time I was a senior.
It's wild how having a near-death experience can kind of change what you end up doing with your life. Yeah. Like, not to say that you weren't heading down that path regardless, but it might have just gave you that extra push you needed to actually start pursuing what you enjoy. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
You really take stock, And I remember I was laying there late at night, couldn't sleep because of the pain meds, and you're always sleeping, right? So it's like, how much more sleeping can I do? And just staring at like dark room, it's like something out of a movie, staring at the ceiling, and I'm like, if this is it, like, if I get more time, what am I gonna do with it? Yeah. And I had thought journalism would be really cool to try, So it's not like overnight I decided I'm gonna be a journalist, but I started to take steps towards putting myself in the position where I could get my byline in the paper, and then write maybe daily news stories, and just one step at a time. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier how you were like a big reader. What are some of the most impactful books that you've read?
Well, I mentioned young adult. I think as a boy, one of the biggest impactful books for me was The Power of One, and I forget who wrote that. Off the top of my head, but it's about a South African British boy who grows up in like the 60s. It's like after the war, 50s and 60s, and he's really bullied by the Dutch and German South African kids, and he learns how to box, and he becomes like it's kind of like Teddy Roosevelt's story, right? This anemic, asthmatic, sickly young boy grows to be a alpha male. Yeah. But there's this intelligence to it, right? And that book really resonated with me because I grew up boxing too with my grandpa, and he was a big boxer, taught me how to box. it's a really big part of Latino culture.
Yeah.
Right. And so where I'm from, it's like 85%, mostly Mexican immigrants in Sunnyside. And so, you know, local boxing matches or big fights are always a big fiesta, you know? So boxing was kind of a part of my childhood.
Yeah. I got really into boxing here a couple years ago, around 2021 or 2022. And I trained for about like a year, 1 to 2 years. And I was like actually planning on competing in the amateurs and like taking it really serious. But Alzheimer's runs in my family. And I saw my grandma go through it and slowly deteriorate and kind of lose her mind and her mental ability. And I just really sat there and kind of thought about it for a while. And I was like, if I do happen to get this disease, do I really want to speed up the process of it happening? Yeah. And so, and like I'm a big family person. I just think about my kids having to deal with me, not necessarily deal with me in a bad way, but just having to watch their father or their grandfather lose his mind. Yeah. And that's just scary to me. It is. And I can't imagine like what my grandma felt like waking up and not knowing where she was every day or who people were who were her family members and stuff like that. So
yeah, that stuff can be with the right, you know, genetic makeup. It could be an early process, but I could see that because you got kind of a boxer's, you know, build. And it's wiry.
It was really the main reason I wanted to get into it because I just think it's important to be able to protect yourself. You just never know, and I think like most people should know how to defend themselves with like some sort of martial art, and it's good for discipline too. Like it just trains you. It trains your emotions because at first you get like I would get punched in the face in sparring and I would just like black out and it just go crazy. And then you kind of learn how to like just respond calmly and not let your emotions override you and what your actions are. And so I just think it's important for so many reasons. It supplies the discipline. It allows you to control your emotions, and you to learn a skill to protect people on top of that. So I think any martial arts are a good form, a good skill to learn.
I agree.
So that was something that I thought was really important for me during that time frame, and I'm glad that I went through it because there's just a lot to learn. So it's kind of funny that you kind of did something similar in boxing growing up.
Yeah, I did martial arts as well as a kid. So it was I think it's key, especially for kids. You know, it gives you some self-confidence as well, and you know, as your body is growing and changing, it helps you stay grounded in your body and feel your body as it's growing and changing. I mean, I was always one of those kids that like would bulk up and then you know, thin out and then bulk up and thin out. So it's like, you know, from year to year your center of gravity feels different. You know, you're just and always the biggest kid in class, right? So it's like that really helped me, and it helps with other stuff too. Basketball and soccer were kind of my two sports, so you know, learning the balance, the agility, that was huge.
That's how I was. So I was a multi-sport athlete all throughout high school, or even before that. I played baseball, basketball, and football.
Okay, yeah.
And I was kind of the same way. I never really got bulky. I only stayed really thin, but I just grew so fast and was always like the tallest one in my class. Yeah. And it was just finding that balance and not being like super uncoordinated and clumsy. And I'm sure you understand that because you're pretty damn tall too. Yeah. And so like just you're at points you are as a kid pretty uncoordinated. Yeah. After your growth spurts, and it's just being able to do some sort of activity that gets you through that and helps you like learn your body and your movements and what you're capable of and everything. Yeah. It's really important, and I still love sports today for it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
What was your favorite sport?
I think soccer. Yeah.
And it's one sport I didn't do because I hate cardio.
Oh yeah.
So
I did too. I still do. But it was one of those things where it's like I wanted to be better at basketball, and for me I've always hated cardio. So it's like I'm gonna force myself to do this, and then I really realized, hey, I've got a talent, and I really like field sports more than indoor sports. So yeah, I kind of flourished at that. Plus the deal was like in high school, it's like you either work after school or you can play a sport. Yeah. So I was like, all right,
we're playing a sport.
I'll play a sport.
Yeah.
Even though I'll make more money, but you know.
That was kind of, yeah, in high school I was in the same situation. It's like, if you're not going to be playing a sport, because I played 3, you got to go to work.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I had that ultimatum. I think that's the word for it. And because it just kind of forces you to choose. And also, if you're not playing a sport, then you shouldn't just be sitting at home, especially when you're that young. Like, be learning something like that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's kind of what we do with our kids too.
That's how many kids do you have?
4, two step kids. So my older 2 are my step kids, and I married their mom when they were still pretty young. Mm-hmm. So their dad's a great guy. He's still around. You know, we live a mile from each other, which is nice because they're always, you know, they just kind of live both places. And then we've got 2 younger, 2 sets of 2. Right. So the 2 younger ones are just going to be 10, and then our youngest is going to be 5. So 4 altogether.
That's all. How do you like being a dad?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, we have 3 girls and 1 boy, so it's kind of like definitely our house is a girl house, you know? But either way, you know, boys, girls, just being a dad's really fulfilling. And, you know, just at each stage of their life, it's so unique and different, and it's just fun every single stage.
Is there anything like that really stands out as like your favorite part about it?
Seeing them, you know, maybe struggle a little bit and then get it and succeed. Like right now, my daughter is playing soccer, and it's like her 5th season of rec now. Our middle child, Natalie, and you know, they're always terrible when they start. It's just they're all bunching up. It's just, you know, kids in a clump basically, just running around, kicking at a ball and screaming, and then you start to see them kind of like get the concepts of the game and spread out and talk and use strategy, and it's like, you know, you're seeing in real time them develop. It's a great marker of development, you know, and you forget because it happens so slow daily, and then you just see them like run like a streak of lightning, and they're dribbling the ball and going around cones, and you're like, holy shit,
when did that happen?
Yeah, this is crazy to see this, you know. That, and just, you know, it's the small moments of them holding your hand, or they're asleep in the back seat, or, you know, just those little small moments of life. Yeah. You know, the I love you daddies. I mean, it just melts your heart, you know.
Yeah. I can't wait. That's one of the things. Me and my girlfriend have been together for a year and a half, and I'm waiting until I get a little bit more financially stable, but I can't wait to have kids, man. I think that's like one of the most beautiful things in life is starting a family and being able to just watch children grow up and to hopefully good individuals. I mean, you do your best with what you've got. And
you do.
Is there any like lessons you've learned from it, or like tips that you would give to like new parents?
Be patient. I mean, the thing you talked about, discipline earlier, you know, patience is key, and putting yourself last. I think that so often people have kids and they've never actually had to put themselves behind anybody else, especially men. You know, especially if you're raised with only brothers or you're an only child, like I was an only child. Like, I never had to wait on anybody else, right? It was like, when I was ready to go, we left. I was my mom's first priority, right? When you live with a family, when you raise a family, things tend to work best, I think, when especially the father, but both the father and the mother put themselves last. And that's tough to do, right? Because you're like, I want to go, I'm ready, or, you know, just all these scenarios of where you gotta bite your tongue. You know, somebody says something that irritates you, or you're in a bad mood and you've had a long day, and, you know, I was raised around men that would kind of lose their shit and yell and stomp around, and that's just not good for anybody, you know. And it's like, learn how to communicate your disappointment or your frustration without scaring the shit out of everybody. You know, or resulting to physical things, slamming doors and all that stuff. It's just incredibly traumatic for children, you know, and I know because I was kind of raised around that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like anybody was putting each other through the wall, but just that lack of chi. It's the concept of chi, right? Like the Eastern concept of just like this homeostasis that is pleasant. Yeah. You know, like try not to break that in your own household. So often I think men become tyrants, little tyrannical kings of their own castle, and it's like they're not doing their job unless they're terrorizing everyone around them. And I don't see that as being a good father. Yeah. You know,
I definitely agree, and I think that's one thing that I need to I notice myself doing, where I realize that I put myself first a lot of times, and like I'll get upset if my girlfriend wants to do something that I don't want to do. Yeah. Not necessarily get upset, but I'll get kind of irritated. Yeah. Like I just want to relax today. I don't want to go on a hike and there's just like little things like that. But like you kind of gotta, I think with those type of relationships, you gotta put yourself second. Like especially with like the person you love. Like there's just always some level of sacrifice. Yeah. And I'm like slowly learning that like you gotta be willing to change too, and not be so stuck in your ways.
Exactly, stuck in your ways. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have a hard time doing that and adapting. And I think it's just a human nature thing. People don't like change.
Well, and control, right? I mean, who among us doesn't want to control everything around us because that's comfortable? Yeah. Right. But when you give up control, and not in unhealthy ways, like I'm gonna do drugs this weekend, you know. Yeah. But when you give up control and you say, "Yeah, let's do what you want to do. Let's go for that hike, or let's go to that restaurant that we haven't tried, or it may not be my favorite, or whatever." I find it's actually quite pleasurable to just kind of go with the flow sometimes, and like just be in that state, be in that moment of like we're never going to be here again. You know, I think about that often with my own kids or. Yeah. With my wife, you know, it's like this might not be like my idea of what I want to do for date night, but we're never going to have this day back, and if it makes her happy, then it makes me happy. You know?
I want to get better at that. That is one thing that I feel like in my current situation, I'm constantly forward thinking and thinking about like my finances and my future, which I think is good to an extent because you want to like set yourself up and be able to have a comfortable life, but at the same time it's like I also feel like I struggle being in the moment and enjoying the time that I have now, and it's hard. Like I don't know how to do it at points, because it's like I have this goal and I want to achieve this goal, and I feel like the only way to achieve this is if I'm constantly thinking about it and working towards it. But at the same time, how can I keep myself from drowning in the work and allow myself to enjoy life and allow my partner to enjoy life too, because I know it takes a toll on her when I'm constantly working or focused on other things and not in the moment present with her. And it's hard. I mean, it is. I don't know how many other people feel like that, but I feel like there's got to be a lot of anyone who has some sort of like goal or someone who's extremely dedicated towards an achievement. It's hard to get yourself out of that mindset.
Yeah, it is. And if you're an ambitious person, I think it's incredibly hard to you know, obsession can be a two-way double-edged sword. Right, where it's really helpful in achieving what you want because you can set goals and you can achieve them, but on the other hand, it can make you a not very fun person to be around, you know? So I think, I try and think about chi quite a bit, you know, like what is my mental state right now? Because if I'm just frenetically running from one thing to the next, which I can get into that mentality, I'm no good to anybody. And I'm not even really achieving my goal or doing a quality job. I'm just doing something really obsessively and fast, you know?
That's hilarious you say that, because I notice myself doing that too. Like I'll tell myself that I'm working towards this goal, but in reality, like I'm not actually getting any progress towards it. I'm just wasting time on little things that don't even really matter and aren't that impactful, when in reality, I could actually spend probably a fraction of the time doing the most important things that would actually lead me to that goal.
Yeah.
And I'd get to that goal faster while also freeing up more time.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to like setting your priorities straight.
Yeah.
And also probably being more, what's the word? I guess disciplined about your schedule, maybe.
Yeah.
Or just kind of like planning better.
Yeah.
Like for me, I noticed if I like actually write down what I want to do during a day, and like I plan out at what times and when I'm able to do it, I'll get a lot more done, and I'll actually be able to schedule more free time for myself versus I'll write down maybe or think about a few things I want to do that day, but then I don't set certain times or whenever to get them done. So then I'll end up just spending 30 minutes scrolling on my phone or watching a video on YouTube on TV or just doing random stuff that really doesn't matter. And the next thing you know, it's nighttime and I barely got anything done and I didn't spend any quality time with my partner or anything. So I think that's one of the main things I've noticed that has helped me a lot is getting a plan and sticking to it. But it's also just getting that discipline to actually make the plan every day.
Yeah. I find that not necessarily structuring down to the minute, but giving myself blocks of time where I'm like, this is my alone quiet time to get some stuff work done. I call it, usually my process is like, I'll start by procrastinating is what I call it, where it's like, it's working, but it's not really working on what I want to work on or what I'm focused on working on. So I get those little tasks, the little housekeeping done, emails, whatever. And then I'm like, okay, I've given myself my procrastinating time. Now I'm going to focus on, on this writing piece or whatever it is, editing this video or whatever, And I find that for me helps,
What's your typical day look like and like your weekly schedule as well?
Well, kids need to be at school at 7:30, so usually try and, make them lunch the night before so I don't have to the morning of because everything's so hectic. And then, we still have one so young that she's at home. So wife stays at home usually with her in the morning. And then I have an office. So I try and spend, 6 to 8 hours in the office if possible a day, but I'm also flexible enough to be, what I try and do is really get a lion's share of my work done before that 2:30, 3 o'clock mark, because then I can go pick up kids and it's not, or I can go home and start dinner and my wife can get kids or vice versa, because we do pretty collaboratively, parenting. So I don't keep too much of a structure, but I do kind of like you fall into that 8 to 5 rhythm because everybody I talk to pretty much works 8 to 5. So, if I'm calling people too early or too late, they don't like that too much. So, a lot of my reporting time is during that 8 to 5. Yeah.
Does the majority of your job consist of just writing, or what else does it consist of?
I do a lot of video editing. I do a lot of shooting video. So there's that, which can be very time consuming when, you're using multiple high quality cameras, which, I'm like such a gearhead that I've kind of consistently upgraded my gear. And so now I'm dealing with pretty large files. But a lot of time on the phone, I might do 1 or 2 interviews per day. So audio editing, not long form like this. Some of those might be 10 minutes on the phone, but some might be hour plus depending. But I keep an office so that people can come in and see me if they want to, or I just talk to them on the phone, or I go to them. It just depends, So I've always got like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 stories in the works. So I've always got something to work on.
Yeah.
And if I feel like I'm hit a dead end with something, like my ADD, like I'll just jump over to something else.
Yeah.
And I feel like that kind of it allows me to continue working. Even if I'm not making progress on this thing, I can make progress on that thing.
Have you ever put a story on the shelf for like months or weeks and then like eventually got back to it? Or I'm guessing there's even stories that you probably put on the shelf and just never got back to because there just wasn't any more leads or any follow-up to it.
Oh yeah. There's lots of stories like that. I mean, I have files, in bins that are like I'll come back to this. You know, I mean, I've got a whole bunch of stuff, like for instance, just on Bethesda Christian Temple, which was our cult of the 70s here. And I've always thought to myself, I've got enough for a book on it. But I've got this idea to do a podcast because I've got this old radio from KPQ did a whole series on this Bethesda Christian Temple in the 70s, and it's fascinating audio. And so I thought, you know, that would be cool, like in a format of a podcast, you know, play some of the old reporting and then kind of do, you know, new stuff. And there's a lot of similarities that people have pointed out between Bethesda and Grace City Church. And there's even a lot of old Bethesda people who go to Grace City Church, which is interesting.
What is Bethesda? Will you kind of break that down for me?
Yeah, so Bethesda was it was widely known as a cult in the 1970s here in Wenatchee. Actually, Boswell's Furniture out there in Monitor, right across from the Hot Rod Cafe, that furniture store, that was their college. And so they had wild success. This guy named Larry Titus was your quintessential televangelist, you know, suit and tie, $5,000 suit, bouffant hair, you know, drove the Cadillac, had the swagger. He had the riz, you know, and he came here. He came here, and it was like 100 people went to this church, and it was almost defunct. And he grew it because he started preaching on the streets to like the kids, you know, to like homeless people and to young people who were just kind of like hippies and freaks, essentially. And so he kind of got this reputation as like this converter of the unwashed masses of the Wenatchee Valley. And he grew this into a huge church where people were giving a lot of money, and it was like charismatic Christian, so you know, lots of dancing, lots of singing, and the music was a big deal. And they started their own college, they had their own bookstore, they had their own gas station, and they started to invest in people's businesses around town. Come to find out that people were selling their home, were mortgaging their homes or taking out a second mortgage on their homes and giving him the money. There was this diamond importing scheme from the Holy Land, from Israel, where they would go on choir concert tours, and the business manager was bringing back, come to find out, completely worthless diamonds, and then getting people to invest in this. And it was a Ponzi scheme. And the sheriff at the time,
that was all local.
Yeah, it was all here. So eventually the shady financial stuff caught up to them, and they had a federal trial here at Chelan County. And the business manager, his name was James Iyer, beat the charges, but he was charged with a bunch of fraud, check kiting. It was called check kiting, where you would, you know, bounce checks, basically write bad checks. And he was there was a mobster from Seattle that was involved. He loaned them money. I mean, it was just all this, like, you know, scandalous stuff.
Where was the church itself located?
Monitor, I believe. So it was like, that was their worship center, and then their college too.
Do you remember a few years ago there was like a documentary, a 10-episode documentary about something in Wenatchee?
The Valley of Sin.
Yeah, the Valley of Sin. That was about another church, right?
It was about, so in the 90s there was another scandal. And that one was like, come to find out, a completely made up pedophile ring scandal. And a bunch of people went to jail, though, you know, and there's still people who were involved in that around as well.
And that's I believe the church that's off of Grant Road, right?
Yes.
I think above the high school.
Yes.
So what's crazy is I grew up in that neighborhood, kind of.
Oh, really?
And as a little kid, I walked by that church, and I think it was already closed down and run down by this point, but someone like lived in it and converted it to a house. And what'd they say? They wrote something on like their church display sign, and it said "No hose allowed" or something like that. And like that's like the most, like, that's the one memory I have about that place, is that it said, it just said "No hose allowed." And
wow.
I was like, as a kid, I just like saw this old church building, like rundown church building, and that on there, and I was like, that's just so weird. And I'm like 12 years old seeing that. And then that whole story, that documentary comes out a few years later. I'm like, wow, so there's like some history here with this church. And that might have just been like some guy who lived in it now who just put that up or something. But
I think that's the old pastor of that church back in the day. His name is Robbie Robertson. I see him at Costco every once in a while. You know, I feel bad for him. He's all hunched over. He was in a bad car wreck after about that same time. But you know, you got to feel bad for him and the other people because it was all kind of made up. Yeah. And some of those folks went to jail for like up to 10 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was
I didn't finish the whole series, but I remember watching it like right when it came out, the first few episodes, and hearing that like there was like a sheriff involved, like or like a lot of people involved in like basically framing these people. Yeah. And that's just so nuts. Like this small valley has a rich history of crazy stuff like that. Yeah. Just like I recently found out, like we have the gold mine by Saddle Rock, I believe. Yeah. And like supposedly underneath Wenatchee is like we're really gold rich. Oh, really? Like under the whole city, but it's like 200 feet down or some insanely. It's so deep you can't really get to it. It's not really
feasible. Yeah. Wild. Yeah, I knew that there was an old mine up there, but that's why Appalachia is there. I guess that's kind of what they did after they closed the mine. Yeah. So
it's crazy. So you said you grew up in Sunny Slope or Sunnyside?
Yeah. Lower Yakima Valley.
What made you move over here?
Well, I went to WSU, transferred to WSU, and then I got a job here as a business reporter. And it was the first town it was the second job I was offered, but the first town was Ritzville. Oh, okay. Which is tiny.
Small.
Yeah, it was like literally one, street light. And I thought, I'd kind of like to live somewhere where maybe there's a few girls, which I didn't know. At the time that I moved to Wenatchee, was not, the dating scene was not, not robust by any means, but
better than Ritzville.
It was better than Ritzville. And so I thought, I'll move there, do the whole media thing. You live somewhere for a couple of years, you move on. But at least, there's some folks, at least my age, to hang out with a little bit, which it was a big difference from Pullman, where everybody's your age. Yeah. So I moved here to take a job as a business reporter, and then just kind of fell in love with the area and met my wife, and opened my own business about that same time. So I was freed up from the necessity to constantly move for media jobs.
Getting out of that kind of rat race of just working for someone else and having, like, not necessarily having to move, but finding the job that better fits you or more salary, a higher salary. Yeah. What makes a story good or impactful? What's like the ingredients to a good story?
Well, I mean, it depends on the type of story. There's, good stories, bad stories. There's an old saying in media that says, if it bleeds, it leads, right? That's a cynical way of saying, tragedy usually gets more attention than the good stories, unfortunately, because people are always like, why doesn't the media cover better stories? Why don't we have more uplifting stories? And it's like, well, I'll tell you,
it doesn't sell.
It doesn't sell. Yeah, when you look at the stuff that gets traffic, it's 4 dead on the highway kind of a stuff, or a scandal with a politician, or sex and drugs and all that stuff. It's that gets the traffic, which equals money. But I think there's more to that. And in my own writing, in my own journalism, I try and find stories that are worth telling, maybe even if people don't see the merit of that. I think it's about finding something that might make people think differently. Like recently I did this story about this lady who's going to cut her hair off.
I saw that. I didn't read it, but I saw the headline where she's cutting it off due to all the extreme stuff with the Epstein files, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where that grew from, was her powerlessness, her feeling of powerlessness about the Epstein files, the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and the ring of perverts and pedophiles that have abused women, but also in a general sense to protest the patriarchy and misogyny in general. And I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to only do it because of this, but this is going to get people riled up, right? And it'll get them talking. Yeah. Because there's no, you can't bring up misogyny without people coming to the rescue of poor men, But the fact is that throughout history, if you really look at it, women have done a majority of bearing the mental load. The men were the breadwinners, right? You bring home the bacon, and then that's basically that. They take care of everything else. They clean the domicile. They rear the children. They bathe the children. They get the kids to school. They get them to the doctors. They make sure that they're clothed, and everything. So all that mental load is on the female. And shit, they didn't even have the right to vote until 1890 in this country. About 90 years before that was when they could own property, and that's in 2 millennia of civilization. So I think that there's something to be said about how we conceptualize the world, and I think there's just so much we take it for granted that this is how it's going to be because it's always been this way. And I looked at her and I thought that's a really brave thing to do. Like, even if it's radical, she's putting her ass out there on the line, and I find that worthy of attention and applause, and then there's other times where it's just flat out like somebody will call me and they'll say, there's corruption over here, or a government official that's not doing their job, and those are no-brainers.
Well, it's what she's doing too. It's almost honorable too. Like when someone's worthy, willing to die on their shield, and like it's almost like regardless of the cause, like you can acknowledge that it's honorable that they like stuck their ground through and through, even if you don't agree with it. Like something like that where she's willing to go to those lengths. It's kind of cool because you don't really see people stick to their guns these days, really, and like have something that they really believe in and go all in on. So, and like you said, it makes a good story.
It does, and I think what's really important to me is that as a cis, straight, whatever you want to say, white male with a platform, that I use that platform to give the microphone to people who might not usually have that microphone. And that was really what I wanted to do with my show on NCB Life as well, is minority voices, women, children. Right now I'm working on a story about CASA, which is our local guardian ad litem nonprofit that basically takes care of foster kids in the system, right, and shepherds them through the legal system. So and many of these foster kids, if you're taken away from your parents, there's a legal aspect to that, right? So these people show up at court and they are basically your social worker for specifically that process, and they stick with you from day one all the way until you're out of the system legally, and they help you through it, and they are getting their budget cut by $20,000 from the county. And so it's like, why, their board is asking, why are you punishing some of the most vulnerable people in our community, foster kids, by doing this? And I think holding power to account is a really important job of a journalist. And if you're afraid of losing ad sales or you're afraid of pissing people off, you're not going to be able to do that. So I don't necessarily want people in government to say, oh boy, Dominick Bonny's calling me, but I don't want them necessarily to think that I'm
just gonna kiss their ass.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to have that respectful relationship, but also I'm gonna hold you to account here, and hold your feet to the fire, and please explain why you made this fiscal decision, because it's impacting this group of vulnerable kids.
That's one thing that I really enjoy about like what I do right now is that I don't make any money from it, so I can kind of say and like have whoever I want on, and without like any real repercussions, unless like going into this, I knew that there's going to be people, because I want to have anyone and everyone on, kind of like you, be willing to have like people who just kind of have a crazy story or who have been through a lot of stuff in life, and I want them to be able to talk and kind of get to know them, because I think there's so much to learn from individuals, and everyone has their own immense amount of knowledge, and so that's another reason why I wanted to start this and just be able to have some cool, genuine conversations, and I've kind of lost my train of thought right there, but
well, I mean, everybody has a story, and that's the thing I like about journalism too, is you don't have to be special, quote unquote special, to be worthy. I mean, I could sit down with anybody on the planet and give me a half an hour, and I can find you something interesting enough to write a story about. You know, whether it's a formative memory as a child or some adverse, you know, challenge that they face in their life, or grief. I mean, these are elemental things that we all deal with, and we all deal with them in our own individual ways. And I think that we're intensely self-centered, but we're also intensely curious. Right? It's that weird duality of man thing, where we want everybody to listen to us, but we also want to know about people.
That's how I find myself extremely curious about how, like, everyone is, like, the psychology behind who they are. And that's one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you on, for example. Like, people get to see, like, the online image of you and, like, what you report, and they judge you based off that, but they don't know you. Like, they've never talked to you, or they just see, like, what you do for work. And is that really a good justification to say you dislike someone, or to think they're a terrible person? Like, I could disagree with someone and still acknowledge that, dude, they're still a human being, and they have their own story, and just because, like, that's what their views are on something, like, why would I hate them for it? Like, it's just, I don't know. There's just a lot of dehumanizing today, and not really looking deeper into who the people actually are.
I agree. There's so much dehumanization, and I think that's a red flag in societies when we dehumanize each other. And, you know, not to get into Grace City Church too much, but that's one of my gripes with Josh McPherson, is that it's not just that somebody disagrees with him, it's that they are the incarnation of evil, of everything that is wrong with the world, of the devil himself. And it's like, no, that's just somebody that you don't see eye to eye with. Don't make it all dramatic. They're not evil. They're not the Terminator. They're not Satan, you know, from the bowels of hell. It's just somebody that you don't see eye to eye with. And I think that we need to, well, have more conversations, more open and honest conversations, which social media doesn't lend themselves well to.
And be a little bit more compassionate.
With
your message. That was one of my grievances with them, is that, like, they're building this mega church. Obviously, you can see that. And I don't like mega churches to begin with, but as a church, I feel like you should want to welcome people in, and, like, with their whole social media presence and what they preach, it's, like, so combative to a lot of people. And, like, you're actually, like, shooing off a lot of people and giving Christianity kind of a bad rep. And it, like, a lot of their stuff comes off and comes across as hateful. Like, even though they might not mean it to be that way, I kind of think, like, in a sense, it's similar to what you do in wanting to get views, like, into a story, like, negative stuff gets views. And I kind of feel like that's what they do. And that's how they've grown a lot, is by selling the stuff that is, like, really dark and negative, and that's what they post, because they know that's what gets views, and then they will have people who will agree with that view, and follow them. And I actually do kind of want to pivot into Grace City, if you're okay with that a little bit, because that is one of the things that you report on pretty often. What got you started kind of looking into them, and what is some of your major grievances that you have with the church itself?
I got started really in earnest because of the school board meeting that Carrie McPherson sent Grace City Church members to back in 2020. And they said, you know, basically, we want bodies to show up. They're going to be talking about sex education, and they're going to be talking about masking and stuff like that. And they were all bent out of shape over this gender unicorn placard in schools, in public schools. And they showed up, and I saw that, and I thought, this could be it's going to be a good story, but it could be, violent. I mean, it seems like this is a combustible situation. Yeah. And that was kind of that same year that Moms for Liberty and these groups were showing up at school board meetings and just berating the school boards and running them out of the building and stuff like that. And that's kind of what happened with that. And there was a guy standing in front of me who stood up and clenched his fists, balled up his fists, and he kind of started to walk towards Maria Iniguez, who's still a school board member now. And I was standing behind him, and I thought to myself, I had a cage on my GH5 Lumix camera, and it was my older camera, and I thought to myself, if he gets any closer, there's no security, and he looks like he wants to punch Maria. If he gets any closer, I'm going to bash him in the head to stop this going on. And I left that meeting, and I thought to myself, I have never felt in the entirety of covering these boring, usually dry as watching paint dry. Yeah. These meetings are. I've never felt so on edge about the possibility for violence happening. Why did we have, what got us here? And that's what I started to look into Grace City Church in earnest. And I started to realize that they were pulling some of the strings behind the scenes, and that Brian Burnett, our former sheriff, was a big time member, and that he had the God Squad, quote unquote God Squad of guys, deputies under him that were all members and kind of bullying other people who had either left the church or were women on the force. And so that's kind of where I started.
I think I saw you report something about there was deputies who filed a lawsuit against him or something.
Yes.
I don't know exactly. I just kind of I see a lot of your headlines. Can you go further into that a little bit? Because I do think that what I saw, there was deputies who filed something against him because of like or misconduct or something, or based off what their views, or they weren't a part of that God Squad maybe, or
yeah. There was one specifically, Aaron Shepard, who at the time was getting a divorce, and they went to Grace City Church, and she stayed, and he left, and then he started to get bullied at work, and really, bullied in ways that were calling him names and effeminate, calling him effeminate and stuff like that, and he made the case that basically he was punished for not going to Grace City Church anymore. Sued them. The county paid him $250,000 to settle it. Yeah. And then another deputy was Jennifer Tyler, and she won probably about $5 million between two cases. One was settled. The first one, she won a judgment, and she alleged basically that she was being punished for being a woman, and that they didn't back her up on calls, putting her life in danger. Didn't have the right gear for her. Didn't have Kevlar that would work for her. Yeah. And that's all intentional stuff, is what she said. Well, a jury agreed with her, and they awarded her about $3.2 million in that first.
So crazy.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money, because that's all.
And that was a Douglas County
your taxes
jury.
too.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, so the way it works is there's what's called a risk pool, and it's like an insurance policy. Yeah. So all these counties pay into the risk pool, and then if you're successfully, if you sue the county and you're successful, it'll come out of the risk pool. But just like if you get in an accident and you're driving and you keep getting in accidents, you won't be covered anymore. Yeah. And then if you get in an accident, you're paying it out of your pocket. So essentially, from what I've heard is the county has been told by the risk pool, if there's too many more claims that we have to pay out, we're going to drop you.
And then what happens then? Does that come straight out the tax dollars then?
Yeah, the budget of the county, which that's impossible, right? Yeah. I mean, right now the budget is it's in the red. There's no money to, there's no money to pull from, really. Yeah. I mean, maybe some reserves or something like that, but you can't go clean out a reserve and hand that over to a deputy that sued you. It's just not fiscally viable. So yeah, that was kind of where that all started. And then I just realized like how many of the police officers in town go there, and how they've really tried to court ex-military and police officers and just get involved in putting their putting their thumbs on the scales of local elections. So
a lot of business owners too. That's how they get a lot of their money.
Oh yeah.
That's one thing that I did like about Gray City is that it was like it's really good for networking with business owners.
Sure.
Just there's so many people that go there.
Yeah.
And also one thing I don't like about churches is when they talk about like tithing and talk about how you need to. When I went there, they never mentioned tithing one time.
Really?
And I went to like a whole year and a half of sermons, and Josh never mentioned tithing once, and so like that I really appreciated. But then I also was curious like how are they getting this money? But then you realize that like a lot of these businesses are donating millions of dollars as their like tax write-offs. So and that's how they're getting. But then I think recently I want to say I saw a clip that you had posted about like tithing, about him talking about tithing, which is interesting just because I never heard him talk about it. So but it's also just that kind of whole shift from when I first started going there to when I left, about how it just slowly became more and more political. And I get kind of wanting to have like an impact and wanting like things in politics to be like more like Christ-like, but then it gets to a point where it's like when you're only preaching about politics and not really teaching the word of God and more so teaching the word of like follow Trump at all costs. Like it's like, dude, and Josh has gone to the White House and like went and prayed over Trump like multiple times now, and which though that's almost like idol worship to me. Like I don't know if you've seen the pictures of him and all those other like mega church pastors there, but it's like pictures of him, all of them touching Trump like he's like some massive figure. Which like obviously he is a massive political guy, but it's like.
It's eerie.
It's just weird. It's really weird, and I just that doesn't sit right with me.
Me either.
And another thing that kind of, I don't know if you know about like the ties to Mark Driscoll, for example, and that was another thing I found out really early on because like I'm an actually curious person. So and I had heard about like the stuff like the kind of eeriness behind Gray City. And so like I was kind of like on my toes going into it. And kind of like just wondering what was all this about. And what I found is that most people don't know the story behind Mark Driscoll and like what the ties are. And I think back in 2012 or 2013, or maybe even a little earlier, like 2009, somewhere in that era, he had a mega church in Seattle or that area. And he released a book and he wanted it to become a New York Times bestseller. So he used, I think, $80,000 of tithing funds from the church to buy his own book so he could become a bestseller, a New York Times bestseller. And it's like, as a Christian and as a pastor, especially, what are you doing? Like, and this is Josh's mentor,
right? And his best friend, as he says.
And then some of the stuff Mark Driscoll posts online, it's just like, dude, like he talks about women needing to take care of their husbands like sexually. And one time he made a post about blowjobs are biblical and stuff. And it's just like, I mean, I get it in a sense, like the whole like sexual thing with your wife and everything, like that bedroom talk. I don't think that should be a part of church. Really, that's weird. Saying blowjobs are biblical. Why are you as a pastor talking about this?
I know, it's so weird.
Just weird and kind of corny. Like, I don't know. Like, what are you? Just you're a grown man. Like,
it's really his thing. He really talks about sex a lot.
Oh, he's always talking about like the spirit of Jezebel. And like again, I agree with a lot of like the Christianity stuff, but it's just like when you make this your whole identity. And this is like what you're constantly preaching about because you know this is what gets views and what's getting people. It's like I can agree with part of the message, but I don't agree with like the delivery of it. And just I don't know.
He knows what he's doing. He knows he's trolling people. A lot of this social media content is just like, Mark, you just sat down and you got like a feminist in your mind that you're trying to piss off. Like,
literally,
can't you do more than that?
Well, and then like he'll do like reaction videos, just scrolling on like TikTok or something, and make reactions, and then he'll say like some super like controversial thing purposely, and like a lot of it isn't even biblical. Like he'll just say it to like piss people off. And like he's talked about finances, basically. Like I've heard him call people broke if you can't provide for your family, or if your wife needs to work or something. Like, you're just a little broke boy or something. Yeah. And it's like, dude, like, just be a little empathetic and have some understanding of like what the current economic situation is like for most people. Just because you run a huge church and make a ton of money off it, it's like, and that's one thing. I just don't think pastors should make a lot of money. Yeah. Like, I think one of their, that's just not a good sign of what they're trying to preach. Is wealth and
that prosperity gospel thing gets really, you get into some dark places. You know, and I've spoken with former members of Grace City who have said, yeah, we gave them our last $20,000. You know,
that's crazy.
And just signed over
I haven't
a check.
Heard about anything like that.
And it's like, oy, you know.
But yeah, no, that's nuts. I can't imagine giving out money that you can't afford. Like, that makes no sense to me. And that's one thing I'll give props to. I forget the name of the church, but it's right across the bridge, and it's it says like Jesus. The bushes are cut out, and they spell Jesus. It's right on the highway. But it's a smaller church, just an older people, and Pastor Andrew is the pastor there, and he's like really soft spoken, and like they do like a lot of mission trips, and he's not wealthy by any means. And I just think that's how a church should be run, like just kind of like more quiet, and not like quiet in the sense of preaching the gospel, but quiet in the sense of like a lot of crazy online presence and like
humility,
spreading wealth.
There's a humbleness, I think, to the nature of a real man of God. When you see that humility, it fits. It's like, okay, Christ was a humble person, even though he was the Son of God. Right. But he's not strutting around saying, I'm the Son of God, bow to me, worship me. Right. I mean, he was the first shall be last, the last shall be first, right? That's what happens at my table. So this strutting or this boisterousness, this braggadocio just seems so anti-Christian to me. You know, anti-Christ, who Christ really was.
One of my things that really got me, that I just, so I went there for a year and a half. I never spoke one word to Josh McPherson. And he's the lead pastor at a church.
I've heard that from so many people.
I have a personal relationship with Andrew, and Columbia Grove is the name of the church.
Oh, okay.
And like he reaches out to me and says happy birthday every year. Even though I haven't been to his church in over a year or multiple years, and he still is in contact with me. Never met Josh McPherson. Went there for over a year and a half. In every church that I've gone to, the pastor's on the floor talking to people after and before sermons. He goes behind and you never see him again. Like, and they say it's a security risk, which I kind of like maybe understand a little bit because of like how popular the church is. And like what they preach about, some of like the controversial topics, but is it really like they've never had any real threats, I don't think.
No.
Like, and they have people there doing security. I don't think that's a justifiable reason to not be talking to people. And like you have to schedule like weeks in advance to have like an hour conversation with him. And it's like, why is that a thing for the head pastor of the church? And,
I mean, it's not that big. And like you said, they have a security team. And I wonder at that. I spoke with a man who grew up really in McPherson's church. His family was one of the first 12 families. And this was back when it was Grace Covenant Church. Before they moved to Wenatchee, it was Kashmir. And, you know, he said, it was really humble starting. You could talk to McPherson. It was, you know, he was just like another guy. And as the church grew and as their wealth rose, you know, he stopped driving a Toyota Camry, old Toyota Camry, and there was a new truck every year. And then they built him the house, and he became more and more detached from the rank and file members, and. Yeah, I mean, that was really interesting to me. And he said the security team came after Driscoll came to visit one year, and it was Easter, and he preached at Easter, and he had men with guns with him. And the next week, Josh had security too.
Interesting.
So I think Josh saw that, you know, they say it's for a security risk, right? I think Josh saw, Mark had a security detail and he wanted one too. Because that makes you an important guy. You know, you must be important. You've got guys with guns following you, you know, around kind of a thing.
With all this said, too, I do think, like, there's still people that I know that go there that I do care about, and I think they're good people. Like, I don't think a lot of the people that go there are, like, have ill intent or anything.
No. I agree.
I know a lot of people who I really love and care about who still go there, and I think there is probably some really good messages that you can learn from church and from what they preach, but I do think, like, a lot of it is off. But there's also people that, like, I like and I care about who go there who are going to see me post this, and then they're going to be like, why are you talking to him? Why are you talking to this guy who's constantly tearing down our church and all this? And it's like, I want to have conversations with anyone and everyone. Yeah. And you're going to attack me for the thing that you have so long claimed to protect, which is freedom of speech. Yeah. And so now you're going to try and take away my freedom to have this conversation and tear me down for having a conversation when, like, just because you don't agree with it. And this goes for both sides. Like, and that's like the big thing on the conservative side is that they're trying to protect freedom of speech. And like, that's one thing that I felt like I was seeing with social media, with Facebook, I guess, with when COVID came out, you saw like censorship on a lot of it. And so, like, I think the whole conservative thing in 2024 was there was a lot of pushback against that, like X being bought or Twitter being bought by Elon and all that. And so, like, a lot of conservatives say that, but then there's going to be people who see this and then are going to attack me for talking to you and just having a normal conversation. And it's like, dude, that is exactly the opposite of what you were trying to protect.
Yeah. And I think, you know, even though I probably lean more liberal than you and most people in this town, perhaps, personally, I do think that was a time where the liberal movement and left and progressives made the wrong choice, because don't drive voices underground. They metastasize, they get more extreme, and then they gain more of an audience. We should all be able to communicate in the same common space and let the ideas speak for themselves.
What's crazy is liberals were actually the ones who wanted Nazis to have free speech back in World War II, because I forget who the guy's name was, but he was like, you want to beat these people by facts and conversation and make others realize how dumb their logic is. And if you, like you said, if you completely take away their speech, the movement gets powerful. Exactly. And you're feeding into that. And so it's just, I'm kind of like a free speech absolutist as long as there's no like actual threats.
I am too.
And so, and I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people saw like the COVID stuff and realized that it's not all, because it's like equal and opposite forces for everything. So say like it might have been in good intent, but now you just created an opposite intent that's on the complete opposite side. People who like literally hate Democrats now for that. And so it's like you got to find this happy medium. And I don't know. It was a scary time, and it's kind of crazy. And it's just weird.
We continue to see the fallout of it today. I mean, every day. You know, I'm not sure if you've ever seen the film Eddington. It just came out like last year. It's crazy because it's all about that time period. Right. Like that summer of like 2020, 2021. Eddington. Okay. Yeah. And it's a dark comedy. Right, so it's uncomfortable. But Joaquin Phoenix is like the lead actor in it. And it's pretty out there. Like, but it's about a small town sheriff and a small town mayor fighting over COVID stuff. And there's the BLM marches and the kids doing that whole thing. And there's a murder that involved. And so there's a little bit of a whodunit thing, but it's surreal watching that film because it just takes you back to what it was like to be in a small town while everybody was losing their minds about masks and you know, marching and Antifa, coming busloads of Antifa, and it's like, oh shit, I remember that. We did that right here, you know. So I would check out that movie just for you know, just for a laugh almost. You know,
just like the memory of how crazy that time was.
It's crazy how much I think we've all compartmentalized and put that away, you know, because I think there's just so much that I can only speak for myself. It was almost like I can't deal with this anymore. I'm just gonna write it off like that 2-year period didn't happen.
What's even crazier is that was 6 years ago already.
I know. It's crazy. It feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
You know,
the time has just been flying.
Yeah. But I mean, that was another, you know, kind of issue that I had with Grace City at the time, was that Josh was spreading misinformation, medical misinformation. I spoke with a woman, and unfortunately they wouldn't let me write up his story, but her son, you know, refused to get vaccinated because of something that Josh McPherson said. He got COVID, was very overweight, not a healthy guy, didn't have health insurance, 3 daughters and a wife, put him on a ventilator, he died, and now his family is left with a lurch. If he would have gotten a little shot, you know, 2 little shots, he'd probably still be here. And this is the weight of the words that a pastor like Josh McPherson has. He was seen as an authority, not just a religious authority, but somebody you go to for health advice. And for that man, at least, I think he let that man down because he died. And I remember his mom said to me, you know, Josh wouldn't even come to visit him in the hospital. Chris Newberger did, but not Josh. And it's like, this man staked his life on your advice and lost the gamble, and you can't even do him the service of doing what a pastor should, which is, I mean, what kind of a pastor doesn't visit people when they're on their deathbed? Yeah. That's like one of the few jobs you have, you know? You only work on Sunday, so to get there, you know? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's pretty crazy. There's a few, I've also seen you write a few other articles about Adam James. He's running for a political position. I don't know what exactly it is. But it's weird because that church has like 20 pastors. Yeah. Which a couple of them I'm actually I really do like. Like one of them, Adam Ross is his name. And he's like the most genuine guy, and he cares about people a lot, and I don't think he has any like ill intent at all. And he's like a younger guy, I think like 30s, and has a wife and 2 kids, and just a super cool guy. Yeah. And I like him a lot. And he's like the young adult pastor, so he was like talking to people like my age. Yeah. And he like still will text and reach out, and like I really like him because there are pastors like that that just carry themselves, I think, in the right way, and like are really humble and just really caring and compassionate. Yeah. Pastor Adam James, I've always only had positive experiences with him, encounters with him. I haven't talked to him a whole bunch, but I was pretty close with his son and daughter, and so I went over to his house once for I think his daughter's birthday a couple years ago. But he seems like a great guy too. I don't know, like what have you got while doing your research and everything?
I mean, I've really focused more on McPherson, but Adam, I remember, wrote a mailer. They used to do mailers, and then I would get the mailers, and then I would write about the mailers, and I think they kind of stopped doing the mailers because that reason. But he wrote a mailer about cultural Marxism a few years ago. This is back in 2022, and I went through it, and he only mentioned Jesus 3 times, and Karl Marx was like 25 times. And I thought to myself, what does Karl Marx have to do? You know, it's whatever. Like, I get if you're a conservative person, Karl Marx is boogeyman. Yeah. But what does Karl Marx and communism and socialism really have to do with Christianity, other than maybe the argument that you could say Christ was a communist because they lived in a commune and acted as if they were a small communist society of 12 and shared everything and didn't own any property and this, that, and the other thing. But just this idea that, you know, Christianity is incompatible even with communism, I think is a stretch. You know, just because the USSR was an atheist state and, you know, Red China is an atheist state doesn't technically mean that communism and Christianity can't coexist. There are countries where that's happened. So I think there's this real issue with conflating capitalism and Christianity like they're inextricable from each other. One is an economic system and one is a religion. They don't necessarily need to be intertwined. You know, you can take one away from the other. You can have Christianity without capitalism. Yeah. You can have it without communism, you know? And that's my other issue really with Christian nationalism in general is if you believe in Christ's message, then you believe that's a message for all the nations. Like, how can Christian nationalism be compatible? Because nations are inherently in competition with one another. Which nation is God's nation? God's word, God's message, the Bible is for every nation of all people. You know, it's fundamentally a contradiction, Christian nationalism, in my opinion, you know. So those are my big picture issues. You know, personally, I don't really have any issue with anybody personally. You know, Josh, I think, is a very talented speaker and a charismatic individual who is able to communicate very effectively. I think Adam is a good preacher as well. I think they're able to do they're very good at their jobs. They're clearly devoted fathers and husbands, and I really don't fault them for any of those things. I just think that they bring out the worst in people and the worst in themselves, and they indulge so often in this us versus them rhetoric where there has to be a bad guy, and because then you're the good guy, right? So there's no room for just disagreement. Somebody must be the hero of the story and the other person must be the villain. And that's not how life is. It's way more complicated and nuanced. You know? And when we vilify other people, we dehumanize them.
It's also, that's when you start to get that divide. And it's like the good saying, divide and conquer. And it's like, us as a society are super divided right now. And I think that only feeds the fire. And unfortunately, I just wish that it was a little bit more accepting and not so much about tearing other people down, like you said, making them opponents and enemies. And like, I get if someone's directly preaching like Satanism or something, then like maybe like you have some ground to stand on right there, and maybe attack them a little bit, I guess, and defend like Christianity in that sense. But the reality is, people practicing Satanism is less than like 0.00001%. And the rest of the people are just average people just living their lives day to day, who just don't want to be attacked or called crazy for their beliefs and everything. Which the thing is, like, it goes both ways, honestly. Like, I'm a Christian, but you could still say some of my views are crazy too. Like, I believe a guy resurrected after 3 days. Like, that's a pretty crazy thing. Like, universally speaking, that's pretty absurd. So it goes both ways. I mean, you can't just call someone crazy for their beliefs. You got to understand their background and know who they are and know their intent. And there's just so much more that goes into people besides outside of their beliefs. You know?
And an issue I have is the straw man argument, right? It's a logical fallacy of you create this cardboard cutout of what you say the other person is, but they're really not that at all. And so often you hear James and McPherson, they say this is what liberals are. This is what the LGBTQ trans agenda is, or Mark Driscoll, this is what they want, or this is who they are, and they've got the pink hair and the blah 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 blah. And it's like, that's not a real person. You just created a cartoon. And you're supposed to hate that cartoon, and it's easy to hate that cartoon. It's also like real.
It's kind of where I was talking to a cousin who I love, and he's like very very far left. But he was talking about like echo chambers. And it's kind of like that. They paint him that way because that's the 1% that you see online. Like you see, I'm sure like from you, if you're on social media, you've seen crazy Republican clips. And it's like for these people, they say crazy liberal clips. So you have this image in your head of like what these people are, and then you put them in this group that they're all that. And the reality is we're all way closer. Way closer. Like I'm traditionally like a lot closer, more conservative, but then like financially conservative, but I'm also like socially liberal. And I think a lot of people probably are that. Like a lot of people agree on more things than not. It's just we don't have these conversations, and most people just put each other in boxes and write them off as crazy if they don't agree with them.
Absolutely. I mean, politics, and this is my issue with MAGA, with Trump, and with McPherson's concept of politics, is that it's a win or lose, winner take all type concept, and that's the opposite of what politics are. Politics are the art of the possible. It's all about compromise. Compromise means, yeah, I'm not going to be completely happy and thrilled with the deal, but it works enough for me to walk away from the table.
And both parties are not hating their life.
Exactly. But with the zero-sum game, when you represent all that is good and God himself, and your opponent represents pure evil and the devil himself, how do you compromise with the devil?
Yeah, you can't.
You can't. So politics becomes a winner-take-all, zero-sum, beyond Thunderdome, cage match, when really it's about coming to a consensus. And I think that's what Christian nationalism or any sort of fundamentalist religious control over government, that's where you get, right? It doesn't matter if it's here with Josh in Christianity or Iran with the mullahs and the Islamic theocracy. It's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. I just I posted something about Iran the other day, and I was like, we're attacking this country and supporting, like, bombing them and everything, and the whole, like, when Trump posted that tweet about annihilating them.
Yeah.
It's like there's 1 million Christians in that country, and it's like I have a lot of people from Grace City and other Christian friends who support Trump and support that. Yeah. I'm like, dude, you're killing fellow Christians, and not just that, there's other innocent people as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you not care about those people? And then I had a buddy who I used to go to church with who said, he goes, well, do you not care about them being led by a horrendous dictator who's killing them every day or something like that?
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, you can have one without the other. Like,
oh, totally.
I don't want those people to have a dictatorship, but when has us changing or doing a regime change in any of those Middle Eastern countries ever worked?
I know.
The answer is it hasn't.
No.
Look at Iraq. Look at Afghanistan. All those countries we've ended up doing forever wars with.
Yeah.
We lose thousands of American lives, and it just and they end up worse than before.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you get these terrorist groups coming in and leading. Like, now you got ISIS leading, I think, Afghanistan, or maybe not ISIS, but one of those terrorist groups leading Afghanistan. I want to say
the Taliban.
Taliban.
Yeah. And we went into war to get the Taliban out.
Yeah.
And we end up leaving the Taliban in charge.
Yeah.
We invade Iraq and to try and take care of the Ba'ath Party under Saddam Hussein and end up creating ISIS.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just a nose. I mean, that's how you create terrorists, is you bomb these countries. You give their people no future, no option. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of people who want to kill you.
I just don't. I'm kind of an isolationist when it comes to the U.S. and I want to obviously help other countries, but I don't think we should necessarily be so involved, especially in countries across the world. Like us sending troops over there and having American soldiers die, it just doesn't really make sense to me. All in the names of toppling their government, and in reality, I really think it's because Israel wants us to do it. And I think that it's just kind of like a puppets game, to be honest. Like, I really feel like we're getting our hand played. Like, Trump's being told what to do, and he's just taking orders with this whole Iran thing. And he has people in his cabinet probably telling him what to do. Yeah. And he's just doing whatever they say, and he doesn't listen to what everyone else is saying. Because I think it's pretty unpopular right now on both sides.
Yeah.
I've seen a ton of people who voted for Trump kind of completely turning now, just based off this, because the whole thing in 2024 was no new wars.
No new wars, yep.
And he's bombed 8 countries in the first year, I think.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And it's just, people are tired of being fed lies.
Oh yeah.
And it's not even just a conservative thing; it's a politics thing.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah, it's both sides.
Yeah,
for sure. I think we're on the same page here.
Yeah, it's just so sad. I just wish there was more honesty and more like truthfulness in it. But it's just such a shady game.
Yeah, and
it's like the thing with the Epstein files. Mm-hmm. Like, the Epstein files have just been handled so terribly.
Yeah,
and when are we going to start seeing people get locked up for this?
I know.
We have people literally taking advantage of little kids.
Yeah.
And killing little kids. And there's been one arrest or two arrests.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah.
So who else? There's more people. We have the flight logs. We know who went to the island.
Yeah.
It's like,
and look at what Britain has done compared to us. I mean, it has shaken their government. Who, you know, if you were in those files or on those flight records or in those pictures, you are shaking in your boots. I mean, they fired one of their own royals because of it.
Look at what Pam Bondi said. She I think it was her. She said our whole government would collapse if we took out everyone in the files. It's like, maybe that's what we need.
Yeah, and it's like, are you kidding me? A, that's scary.
Yeah.
And B, do it.
Yeah.
Like, I would rather have a government that we can, you know, that would function even worse, but we could trust.
Yeah, for 100%.
So shady. But, you know, I mean, going back to talking about isolationism, I think, you know, I would have to say that if we look at the U.S. AID program, you know, that was cut by the Doge, it was the first casualty of the Doge cuts. People have died because of those cuts. And I don't think that you could point to a better use internationally of U.S. dollars than the U.S. AID program.
What is that program, by the way?
So that program basically was started, it was like a JFK era program. Started during the World War, or during the Cold War, to basically win hearts and minds abroad by spending money on charitable things. So vaccine programs, medicine, food for, you know, mostly Asia and Africa, where people were starving. And over the years, it's done a whole lot of good, and it's saved millions of lives. It did a lot to curb the AIDS epidemic of the 1990s in Africa. And then they just gutted it. And, you know, you hear these stories about food and medicine in warehouses being left to rot while people in Africa are starving and dying of these very preventable diseases. And the medicine's right there. Yeah. And it just was left to rot, expire, in the heat. And there's no real, I still haven't heard a good argument for those cuts, for letting that happen.
Well, the initial thing was we were all going to get the Doge refunds or whatever. And it's like, that's another one of those promises that just never came. And I think it's supposed like $4,000 or like kind of like the stimulus check. And it's like, we did those cuts, and I've heard that someone mentioned that how it's actually affected lives overseas.
Oh yeah.
And like you don't hear about that from my perspective. That's not reported on really. Like, I've never heard anything about that. I have heard like one person talk about it, but it's not like a common thing that you hear about, and you don't realize like what happens. I do agree that with the whole idea of cutting spending because there's so much waste. Right. But I think that's more so of just being our government actually keeping track of what's going where. Yeah. And I had this couple on the podcast a few weeks ago, and I told them I feel like as citizens, what would be best, and I don't know if it's really even feasible, but if we could get like an itemized receipt of where our taxes go, that, because why does our government fail the audit every year? Yeah. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
I agree. Yeah. No, I mean, that would be very helpful. I think people in government don't necessarily want to point to the fact that we spend so much money on our military, right? So the U.S. spends more than the next like 2 or 3 major countries combined, right? So our military spending is that of China and Russia and like Britain. Yeah. You know, so you take all of that, what they spend, each of those countries on their own military, their own navy, and we spend that much and more. Yeah. And a lot of the waste is there. I'm not sure if you remember this brand new, my brother-in-law was in the Navy, right? So I remember paying more attention to naval matters over the last 10 years because he was in the Navy, and they spent trillions on this brand new destroyer, and it was a small destroyer that they were going to use for like drug interdictions between South America and North America, or, you know, good for Mediterranean stuff. And each one was like $1 billion, each one of these destroyers. Yeah. And they spent like $2 trillion on it. So they bought like 24 or something. Yeah. And they were complete hunks of shit. and they all got recalled within like 18 months of them putting them out to sea.
Jeez.
That seems like a natural place to start with government waste. And the fact is that a lot of these contracts, these military contracts, are wasteful, but the congressman with the naval yard in his district, or the congressman with the factory that makes that radar installation in his district, that means a lot of jobs to him, right? So you have these bloated military contracts that are actually very wasteful of taxpayer money, but the Congress people in DC want to keep them going because it benefits their district.
Doesn't it also? Isn't there like private military companies that these politicians invest in?
Oh, too? Yeah. Blackwater is a good one. Eric Prince's company. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in the private war industry.
Yeah, it's like that's a big thing with why people want us to be in war, because of how much they profit out of it.
Oh,
and I mean, my thing would be, I think our spending on the military is good. Maybe not as much. I don't know how much they spend on it, but I like my argument, I guess, from someone uneducated would be like, I would want us to spend the most money so we have the most competent military.
Yeah.
What would be, I guess, but then you say stuff like those ships were all recalled.
Yeah.
So how do you go about that? I guess just hire better quality builders, or like how do you maintain dominance, or do you even think that's important in today's age? I guess what's your point of view on that?
I mean, that's a huge question with a lot of nuance in the answer, but I think that we have some of the best military experts in the world who work for the U.S. government, and when they say, why are we spending money on F-21s? The future is drones, right? I think there's merit to that. So continuing to build these obsolete weapons of war, I think is not just inefficient, but it's a complete waste of money, because we can see where the winds are blowing. Take that money, invest it in the drone program, and let's cut our losses with manned jet fighters to begin with. There's no reason we shouldn't be basically all drone when it comes to aerial maneuvers or aerial warfare at this point. And for that matter, a lot of the submarine and a lot of the naval warfare could be drone too. So
that's true.
And I think that's a way that you can make things smaller. You can punch a big hole with one missile. So you make your vessels smaller, and if you don't need people on them, you don't need bathrooms, you don't need all the stuff that people need. And so it gets cheaper.
Probably cut a lot of costs.
Yeah, a lot of costs.
And you're not paying all the military people to be serving on those boats.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously you'd still want to have a large military personnel, but it would just be allocating those people towards different jobs.
Right. You keep, like, for instance, you would keep your carriers, right? Because a carrier is essentially a floating city, and you can do a lot from a carrier, not just launch aircraft, but basically manage drones from an aircraft carrier. So you park a couple of those off wherever, and just drone warfare, and then you're not losing a human life when people go down.
No, I agree with that. I would way rather without the loss of life. I mean, it's impossible when wartime comes, but just keep it to a minimal, of course. In my opinion. Are you religious at all? And if not, how do you view religion?
I used to be very religious. I was raised very traditional Catholic, and I had always thought, in the back of my mind, that I wanted to be a priest. And so I grew up going to religious school, parochial school, all throughout my educational experience, all the way to college. I started at St. Martin's University in Olympia, and I moved to WSU. So WSU was like my first experience at a public school, a non-religious, non-Christian school. So I was very devout. I did youth ministry the year between I graduated from high school and started college. And I kind of drifted away and got disillusioned with the Catholic Church because of the sex scandal stuff. And also because it just felt like there was so much misogyny in it. And I've always had this very, very intense feeling that we should all be equal, and treating women as not equal rubbed me the wrong way. and always has. And so I just never really came back to Christianity. I don't, I oscillate, I think, between agnosticism and just atheism at this point, because I haven't really seen much good. I mean, I do know that, Catholic Charities does a lot of good in this country for people. But other than that, I just don't see the Christian church, especially the American Christian church, doing much to comfort the poor, feed the hungry, visit the imprisoned. And that was all that really Christ talks about in the Gospels. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if you're not doing what he says, why would I subscribe to why would I go to your church?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I gotta push back right here, just with Grace City, because you've recently put an article about them promoting the church in jail, and then yes. you just mentioned that they're not Christianity's not visiting them imprisoned.
Yes.
So I guess how that a little bit contradicting. What are your thoughts on that when you say that?
First of all, they have a contract, so they're paid to do that. Second of all, Josh McPherson has referred to the inmates of the Chelan County Jail as his, quote, his captive audience, end quote. So I think that there's a certain cynical nature to them wanting to have that contract, because those are sitting ducks.
Yeah.
And they have full access to them, unfettered access to them, and they can basically just, pump in their message until those people are automatic converts, right? So I think in the Bible, when Christ says visit the imprisoned, he's not implying that you do that so that they convert. Mm-hmm. He's saying do that because because they're children of God, and that's how you show your love for your brothers in Christ.
Yeah.
And let's face it too, at that time, if you didn't have somebody who would visit you, you starved.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't like a cafeteria, right? Like your visitors had to bring you food in jail when you were in jail back in Palestine in Jesus's day. So that's not necessarily like as important to sustain prisoners' lives. They will get, their laundry done and they'll get food, but it's more about serving the imprisoned by reminding them that they're humans and they're just like us. Mm-hmm. And I think there's an ulterior motive to Grace City Church's chaplaincy contract and how they go about that ministry.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you think there might be a little bit of like deception, or maybe not even necessarily deception, but I guess what's the word for it? Manipulation. Kind of. Gotcha.
Yeah, okay. I think it is a bit deceptive. I think it is a bit like we're doing this because we want to add to our team rather than serve the dignity of these human beings.
Do you? So it kind of sounds like you still agree with like a lot of like the principles of Christianity.
I do.
Like you still have some of those core beliefs.
I do. I think that one of the things that irks me is when people say, if you're not Christian, you don't have morals. I think it's possible to be a moral person without being a Christian. But I do think that the principles of Christianity are a good framework to build a moral person.
Yeah.
I also think that they can be perverted to build killers, right? Yeah. And to build immoral people. I mean, like for instance, the Crusades, right? The Pope says, it's okay to kill as long as you're killing the right people.
Yeah.
And actually, killing the right people will get you to heaven. And here's all of these indulgences and stuff like that. All the bets are off. Yeah. So you can flip the script. That's not biblical, but he flipped that script and essentially used religion to justify genocidal war.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you believe in Jesus?
I believe that he existed. I believe that he was. I don't know if I believe
in the resurrection.
In the resurrection, in the divinity of Jesus. I think that Jesus was probably a Gandhi or a Martin Luther, King Jr. type figure. That his message was so big and his personality was so charismatic, and he made such an impression on people that he created a movement, right? I don't know if he rose from the dead 3 days later. I'm not sure if I believe that. I'm not sure if I'm there, you know. So that's where my skepticism comes in. I was always skeptical as well as a young Catholic about the supernatural stuff, you know, the Eucharist being the literal body and blood. Yeah. Because it's like, it's a cracker. I can taste. It's a cracker in my mouth, you know. Like, I know that it's not, you know. Yeah. So I always had problems with that kind of stuff. You know?
I mean, it's hard because it's what you hear, and it's like I mentioned earlier. It's just crazy. It sounds crazy. But it's the whole idea of having the faith behind it.
Yeah. I think faith is not a rational thing, and I think personally I'm a very rational person. So those things have a hard time. Coexisting in the same person. I want miracles to be true, but I think that believing in miracles sometimes can lead to complacency, right? And in this sort of like inshallah, sort of like, you know, if God wills it, if Allah wills it, that leads to a certain apathy in life. And I think it's important to try to make life better. And if we only believe that only God can do it, then we don't act.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who allow their religion, or let their religion allow them to be complacent.
Yes.
And I don't think it works like that. I think that you can pray for things, but I also think that God will give you the opportunity. He's not just going to give you what you want right away. That's my personal belief. I believe, like, if you pray for patience, God's not going to make you instantly patient. He's going to put you in situations that allow you to practice patience. Yeah. Do you believe in prayer at all?
Yeah, I believe the intentionality of focusing your mind is a powerful thing. Do I believe in the spiritual or the supernatural ability to change fate? Maybe not. I'm not even sure if I believe in fate. Yeah. Right? There's this Eastern Chinese concept called Joss, right? And Joss is like, that's how it will be. That's how it is, you know? And so there's this, I think, acceptance of fate that Eastern cultures have that is worth studying more, you know? And I think so often Christians especially think, well, I can just pray and it'll change the world or it'll make things better. It won't. Like gun control, right? Like thoughts and prayers do nothing. Yeah. What we need is substantive reform in our gun laws so that crazy people don't get their hands on guns and kill people. Like, that's what God wants, is just to take action, not to sit back and say, I'll pray about it.
No, I agree. It's all about action. I mean, like I said, just my fundamental beliefs. It's like prayer doesn't work alone. It's going to put you in situations. What's your general consensus on Christians, and do you think they have purposeful negative intent, or do you think most of them are genuinely good people?
I think generally they're good people. I even think that, you know, most of the folks who go to Race City Church are good people. I think that Christianity is a big business in America, and there's this quote, I can't remember the quote exactly, from the chaplain of the U.S. Congress back in Eisenhower's day, and he said something to the effect of, you know, when Christianity started, it was a belief, and then it went to Rome and it became a governmental system, and then it came to, you know, Europe and it became this, and then it came to America and it became a business. And I think that's a really good way of looking at it. It's cynical, but that's kind of what we've done is we've Americanized religion to the point where it's a commodity. You have to buy the right things or follow the right fads or have that Bible or have that book or whatever. And it's like that prosperity gospel thing. First fruits, you have to give money to be blessed with wealth. You know, none of that stuff is biblical. Yeah. The core tenets of Christianity, I think, are so admirable, but I think it's been warped over 2 millennia. Yeah. And how many translations, and the king wants this part taken out and the king wants this part taken in or put in this, and there's the Apocrypha, and then don't listen to the Apocrypha, and then, you know, it's just been stepped on so many times that it's been muddled.
So it's like almost like the game of telephone.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Where stuff can get misconstrued and changed over time.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And in a lot of ways, it helps maintain the status quo, right? Like the Catholic Church in Europe for so long was a way to keep people from progressing, from learning, from being better. It kept them in their place. And I think that's the danger of Christianity, is that it can be used as a tranquilizer of progress rather than a driver of it. Even slavery, right? Christianity was used in many ways to keep slaves docile and complacent and okay with their lot in life. Don't worry, your next life in paradise will be great. Just keep picking that cotton,
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I think it can be used, for some bad things too. I mean, the same thing with the Holocaust.
Yeah, it's like weaponizing it.
Yeah. The Holocaust itself. I mean, the Catholic Church didn't do too much. Individual priests and nuns ran underground railroads, but the church, it had to think as a nation state did, and it couldn't come out and say the Nazis are killing Jews.
Yeah.
And the blood is on, that was Pope Innocent, I think, at that time. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but the Pope at the time, he played ball with Hitler.
There's a lot of the stuff with the popes. If you look at like foreign popes or previous popes and the history behind them, there's some crazy stuff. Yeah. And I didn't know about this. I had a buddy who's like very into like theology and like the history of like Catholicism.
Oh yeah,
Catholicism.
Yeah, Catholicism.
And he was telling me about like some of the popes and some of the crazy stuff that's with them, and it's like, wow, dude, there's some wild history with popes. Not all of them are the best people.
No. And then, there's also propaganda too, but like Borgia, they said he was incestuous with his own daughter, and the whole thing, and who knows if that's true, or just to smear him, but he was one of the most corrupt men in Europe.
Yeah.
And really, all that stuff kind of led to the Reformation because they got so corrupt, But that kind of underscores my point of Christianity can be a tool for corruption as well as progress.
Yeah. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit back to kind of Grace City again. Would you ever be willing to sit down and have a conversation with any of those pastors?
For sure.
If Josh McPherson reached out, would you be willing to like have a conversation or interview him?
Yes.
Or same with like Adam James.
Oh, absolutely. I've been very open about this, and I've actually reached out many times to them, and it's kind of a standing invitation. I mean, I've even said I'll do it in front of your crowd at your campus. I'll sit down with you. You can pack the stands with people who hate me, and I'll interview you in front of a home turf.
Yeah. That's it. So you've reached out yourself.
Oh yeah.
And never gotten a response or
He blocked my number.
That's crazy.
Adam James. Yeah, McPherson, I got his cell phone number, and I called and I left him a message, and he blocked my number, and they blocked my email.
Interesting.
Yeah, because whenever I write about them, especially at the very beginning, and I had legitimate questions, I would email them with my questions, but they don't want to hear from me.
Do you think, from their perspective, they might just view you as someone who's constantly trying to take them down and just doing smear campaigns?
Yeah, I think that's how they see it.
Yeah.
Once he said something about like pearls before swine, like what I have to say to you, he seemed to think that what I would want is some sort of apology from him.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because he hasn't done anything to me.
Yeah.
If he's going to apologize, I would apologize to all the gay people that he, defames and libels all the time, transsexual folks who he vilifies. I don't have any truck with him. There's no skin off my nose. I'm a white guy who is past. I look like any Joe Blow on the street. Like, he's never gonna single me out.
Yeah.
But I have a problem with bullies, and I always have. Right. So if people are bullying that kid on the playground, I had a problem with that. People are bullying my gay friends or my transsexual friends, I got a problem with that.
It is interesting too, because like from their point of view, like I feel like from what they preach about, they're open to free, or they talk about free speech and everything, and you would think that logically speaking, the best way to debunk like your thoughts or what you do would be to have a conversation and do it publicly, so everyone can actually choose sides. But it seems like from what you're saying, they're not willing to on their end, which I think that actually be like a really good conversation because you seem like a really reasonable person.
Yeah,
like,
thank you.
I don't think anything you've said is like super crazy. I think that like you probably just want to help people and preach the truth and do what you do for a living, and you obviously enjoy what you do. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that would be an awesome conversation if it could ever happen.
I think so too.
I don't know if it ever will.
No, but, me either. I think it would be great to do it live. You know, just say, hey, this is just in the moment, no editing, no prep. You know, this is just two people having a conversation.
Would you want it to be more like a conversation or like a debate almost?
I would hope that it would be more of a conversation, you know, rather than, because when you go in with the mindset of we're debating, it's adversarial right from the beginning. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I don't know. That's the problem I have with that Jubilee YouTube channel is like it's it's like reality TV. Like you're concocting. It's performative. Exactly. It's like just let the camera roll and say, hey, we're going to try and keep this as cordial and as polite as possible, and come at it just as two equals. You know?
I in the future, I'm gonna try and get Adam on the podcast. Yeah, and I think just because I like I said, I want to get everyone's point of view. Yeah, and I don't know if he'd be up for it, but maybe if I could potentially set a podcast down the line of us three, like just me being like a mediator, like so, because I don't want any like personal attacks or anything like that, and I don't think he would. I think if we just like went into it saying it's going to be a conversation, just kind of like talking about like your own perspectives on things. Yeah, I think it could be really like a really good conversation.
I agree,
and I don't think like nothing ill would come out of that. If anything, people would just get to learn more about you guys and just understand more both sides. Yeah, so. I would love to try and set something up with that. And I think I have a decent chance of getting him on a podcast because of like his political run right now. Totally. So I want to say he's probably pushing, like doing political campaigns. Yeah.
Well, he's raised a buku money. I mean, it's pretty interesting. Yeah. Oh, the most of any
When
candidate.
Is that election for that?
That's November.
Of this year?
Of this year, yeah. Okay. So he's running against another Republican, the incumbent, Mike Steele. So really what's more interesting about his race is that primary, only one of them is going to get passed. Yeah. Right? So it's the primary in August 4th, I think, is election day for the primary. That's the one to watch.
I guess that will be like kind of the show of how much power Gray City actually has, like how much pull they have in local politics. Yeah. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, because Mike, his opponent, is a Republican and is the incumbent. Yeah. So Mike's already been in the legislature and he's had a pretty successful run. So he's brought money back to the district. He's in the rooms where decisions are being made. And then Adam is running to his right of a Republican, right? And it'll be interesting to see if they have enough juice to, basically kick Mike out. It's very unusual that an incumbent, first of all, has a challenger from their own party.
Especially a challenger coming with like this much force.
Yes. And this much money. Yeah. Yeah. So he's broken the record of the most raised in the 12th district for the legislative seats.
That's crazy. Do you know how much, like roughly?
Last I looked, that was like a week or so ago, and it was over $300,000. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for a politician like that seat, like what he's going for. That's a lot of money.
Oh yeah, I mean the average amount that those candidates usually raise is like 40 to 70. Yeah.
So it's massively different.
Oh yeah. Damn. Yeah, you've got a couple that have raised like 120, but he's blown the doors off. Yeah. And he's got more money than I think he probably knows what to do with.
But all that money has to go towards campaigning, right?
It does.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not like he's pocketing that.
No, but you don't have to spend it all. So if he thinks he's going to win and he's going to run again, you could leave that in your campaign bank account, come back to it 4 years later, kind of a thing.
And then, like, what happens if there's any left over? There's probably never is, because they probably use it to the max. I'm guessing most.
They try to. Yeah. But like Mike had $25,000 left in his. That's where he's at, right? So he raised more in his last campaign and just left it there for his reelection.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
interesting. Yeah, that's gonna be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
When you're writing about Grace City, do you do that? Does any part of you write a lot about them because it sells, do you think? Or is it mostly because like you want to spread the message of what like your beliefs are on the church?
Neither really.
Okay.
I don't necessarily have beliefs, as it were, about the church. I describe to people that I'm like a bird watcher, right? And they're an interesting bird.
Yeah.
Or a butterfly collector, and they're a interesting butterfly that I want to capture in my net and put the pin in it.
Yeah.
And see it there in my board. So I don't necessarily have this sort of like visceral personal agenda. It's more just kind of like, that's an interesting blip in American history. And I think that's what I'm, at the end of the day, kind of like you, I want to look back and be able to say, like, I wrote about a real phenomenon in American history.
Yeah.
The rise of Christian nationalism through the lens of one small town and one church. And because I'm not a big enough entity, like I'm not the New York Times, I can't give you a synopsis of like what Christian nationalism looks like across the country, but it's right here in my backyard, and I can chronicle this one pretty impactful, culturally significant Christian nationalist church. I mean, like you said, he's gone to DC and visited the White House. He's growing in stature among the religious right, and I think that's really interesting. Yeah.
I'm going to take a shot at Grace City Church right now because this is one of my big things that I didn't like about them. They have so much money and they don't do mission trips.
Yeah.
And there's so many smaller churches that's what all their funds go to is going mission trips and going to like Africa and these countries and like helping like doing work in the communities. Like they'll go and feed people and like spread their message that way. And Grace City has more than enough funds to be able to make this happen. They don't do, not that I'm aware of, don't do any mission trips whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's all focused on building that building that they got.
Yeah.
And I don't know where the rest is going. Probably in people's pockets and stuff. I don't know. But I know one thing that I found out when I was going there is that they can't talk about how much they make. Anyone who works there can't. I'm pretty sure that they have to sign an NDA.
Wow.
So they can't disclose how much money they make.
Yeah, see, that's a red flag. And
so that's another thing that kind of turned me off. Because I had a kid who was my age say that he can't discuss how much he makes. Wow. And I was like, that's for someone who's just helping there, and you can't even disclose how much you make. Yeah. Like I get like maybe wanting to be private about your wages. And because people like that's like a big insecurity for a lot of people is how much they make. I'm kind of an open book. I don't really care.
Yeah.
But like for people, it's kind of a sensitive subject.
Yeah.
But it's like, for a church, when you are donating money and tithing, you should know where that money is going. Yes. And the fact that people don't display how much they make or they're not allowed to. I don't know if things are changed. I haven't been there in over a year. But last time I heard it from people I've talked to, they don't disclose how much money they make, which is just weird to me.
That is a big red flag, honestly. And if you listen to cult experts, that's one of the first things they say is that if you're a member of the church and they refuse to open their books to any donor member, red flag. Every church that is taking money from its members should be able to provide some sort of document or open the books and say, here's our income, here's our expenditure, and here's an itemized list of what people make. So that's a big red flag. The other one is keeping people divided and dividing families. And I think that we also see that happening at Grace City Church quite a bit, where in-laws, mothers-in-law are a constant punching bag. But anybody who criticizes the church is warned.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering how this is going to go for me because I have a lot of friends there, and really? Or not a lot, but like I have like a solid friend group. But honestly, a lot of the people who I was close with have kind of already stepped away from it too. Because like what's crazy is their young adult group. It's every Tuesday nights, or it was, and we would have over like 100 people my age.
Wow!
And that's like a pretty solid show out for young Christians. And from what I've heard, it's been basically cut in half in the last like 2 years. And I think people are starting to like slowly step away of it because like when you're getting preached about politics and like you can see what's going on with this with this presidential election, like what Trump's done so far, and it's like, why am I learning about this in church and getting fed this when it's just, I don't agree with it whatsoever. So I don't know. I think people are just waking up and getting tired of it.
I agree. I think I've heard that too from a lot of former members. Yeah. But I'm interested to talk to people like you and see if that's a trend that that you've noticed as well. It seems like you have,
at least from them, because I do think Christianity probably as a whole is growing right now. In the youth, because I think a lot of people are just fed up with a lot of stuff and they're turning away from everything and trying to turn towards something maybe that, I don't know. If you go towards Christianity, it's easily seen as a sign of hope, because just that's what it's kind of based off of, is having that hope. So I see it kind of growing that way, but I think a lot of people are moving away from that because it's just so politic focused and politically focused, and young people don't want to hear it anymore. We're fed up with politics. It's just, something needs to change, and it's just not happening. And I don't want to go to a church that is freaking kissing the president's ass, dude. It's just weird to me. It's just, that's not what it should be. So,
well, like you said too, it doesn't make it a welcoming place for people who don't feel the same way that you do about Trump. And what does Trump have to do with it? What does Trump have to do with the Gospels? Like,
that's one. They just don't get it. I've had a few people who I was pretty close to attack me because and they say Trump's just playing 4D chess.
Like
he's ahead of the game. I'm like, I don't know if he's ahead of the game or just freaking doing what he thinks is best and he's wrong. Like, it's just, I'm a pretty objective person. And I feel like I will openly admit and say that I supported Trump in 2024 and I voted for him. But I'm objected to see that what he did or what he ran on is not what he's doing now. And everything that he's done has not helped us as American citizens. And so how can I sit here and try and switch it and turn it around and say he's playing 4D chess when nothing has actually impacted us in a positive way? Like, there's no signs of this being some like grand calculated move.
No.
I mean, like the whole someone said that to me about the Iran conflict. That it's all 4D chess and he knows exactly what he's doing. I was like, is that really why on Easter Day he said he's going to annihilate the whole country? Like, and then that peace still lasted less than like 4 hours before Iran and Israel were bombing each other again. It's like,
everything is reactionary. And it's like, if it's 4D chess, how come he never seems like he's ahead of the game? He's always reacting to something. It's like, okay, other than us starting the war, but I mean, like, we've kind of gone over that. Is I think that Israel really led the way on that one. I think it was like, hey, we're going to war, jump on in, the water's fine.
A lot of people, I think, unfortunately view you as the bad guy who go to Grace City, or even maybe who don't go there, who just see what you report on. How do you view yourself?
I just see myself as a journalist that's particularly interested in religious topics. I think that, to be interested in American history, which I always have been, I've always been a big history nerd. It's impossible not to be interested in the role that Christianity has played in American history. And I think that we're living in such historic times where Christianity is such a force of politics that for me it was just a natural fit to write about it. Like I said before, it's really like, I don't want to let this moment in American history go by without me writing about it and chronicling it for future generations.
With that said, if there's anything you'd want to leave to the audience or someone listening to this, what would be your final message to everyone? And is there any sort of maybe value that you would want to provide them, or just a final message of just maybe your thoughts and kind of anything that could potentially help the viewer?
Well, I would have to say that I don't have anything personally against anybody. I think that most Christians, as most people, are fundamentally good. I think that people, when they get in groups, can make bad decisions. And sometimes we want to pay people to say the naughty things that we're too afraid to say, that we're too embarrassed to say. And I think that people like Josh McPherson and Donald Trump have made a lot of money and a lot of power saying the naughty things that individuals are too scared to say, but when they get into groups, love to hear spoken out loud. But I think that they try to get us to indulge our darker natures. And I think that this American experience, this republic that we live in, is best when we're all focused on bringing out the better angels of our nature, as they said in the I think that's Abraham Lincoln, in the Gettysburg Address. So I think that, really, you can hate me. I'm fine with that. But it's really used as a tool to overlook my message and what I have to say and the questions that I have to ask. Because that's really all I'm doing is asking questions. And that seems to make people pretty upset. But that's okay. I don't need to be, liked. I don't need to be loved. I have people who love me. I have people who like me. And I'm okay with who I am. So I think that should say something, right? It's like, here's a guy who has really nothing to gain and nothing to lose by asking these questions. And why is he asking these questions? And then why is the response so viscerally, violently upsetting? It's like, what do you have to hide? I'm just asking questions.
Dude, this has been a fantastic conversation. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time out of your day. It kind of went a little longer than you might have expected, but it was a really good conversation.
I agree.
Where can they find you?
I'm on Substack. That's where people can find a majority of my writing. I've got a piece coming out actually about Grace City Church in the Bulwark, which is a Washington D.C. based center-right political magazine, and that should be out this summer. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Dominic?
All right.
Thank you, man.
Thanks,
man. This was a pleasure.
It was. I'm really glad I did this.
Yeah, me too.